believe we're at Hogwarts.
No, that's Buckingham Palace. Hogwarts is fictional. Do you know that? It's important to me that you...
Happy Monday, degenerate gamblers. Welcome on back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. And we're heading to London, baby. It's Tuesday, isn't it? I am so ready for this fight card. This is going to be a good one. We are coming off UFC Vegas 114, and somehow, shockingly, because it's the most MMA thing of all time ever, this week was better than the previous 2 weeks in a row, right? Like, we've got an Apex card. We're locked in the garage out there. Nobody cares. You can't hear the crowd, whatever. These people put on a show. We're coming off of a Jillian Robertson win, redhead supremacy. She's officially a title contender, and we've been here every step of the way. Oh, it feels good. The only thing that could make the start of this show better is if I were wearing a nice blue shirt with a Die Hard stimulus check t-shirt. If I had something dangling around my neck that, was heavy and thick and felt like a dollar sign and looked, like it was made out of gold, but it's just plastic. No, that would really make me feel good right now. Unfortunately, you guys, all things fair in love and gambling, unfortunately, I dropped the ball. Okay, I dropped the ball. I made the best call on this event that I have made in 2 years. All right, I hit a 10-1 submission prop. And I still found a way to miss out on profitability because that's just the way things are going for your boy right now. Negative 0.17 units. So again, this is one of those weeks where you tell the wife, you know what, babe, I broke even. I didn't lose. But for official record keeping purposes, I'm negative coming out of UFC Vegas 114. We'll recap it. We'll talk about it. We'll go over the good, the bad, and the ugly. Dick's Insider, my man in the house, calling out the 10-1 sub prop on Elijah Smith. What is up, Dream, my friend, saying last practice of the year. Then I can finally tune in live again. Well, thank you, my friend. When you watch the replay, you'll have a very special, heartfelt shout out for you tuning in every single time. I appreciate the love and support. Good luck on that final practice, of course. My man George in the house saying love the thumbnails. Hey, doing what I can, right? Trying to step up the game just a little bit. I loved my old thumbnails. I really did. But realistically, they're a thing of the past, right? I've been doing the show now for about 7 years. I designed the thumbnails myself when I first started doing the show. Fun story. The original thumbnails, I actually kind of stole a blueprint based off of the Avengers movie poster. That was the inspiration for like the design and the layout of the thumbnails. And it's just well past due time that we took a step into the modern era and I made the thumbnails look a little bit more interesting, a little bit more modern. Got to keep up with the times, right? I can't look like a dinosaur on YouTube because I'm becoming a boomer right in front of your very eyes. I really am. So I got to make sure I don't I got to dodge the boomer allegations for at least a couple more years here. So look forward to some good, fun, interesting thumbnails, hopefully, moving forward in the future. Pablo, what is up? JB in the house. We've got Ryan. How you doing? Dylan. Let's see here. Another Ryan. We've got Louis Mack Jr. Everybody else going on in here. Ryan saying Kevin Vallejos, will be champ. And I can't hold a candle against it, my man. Kevin Vallejos looks like the goods. He looks like a future world beater. Do me a favor. Let me cash my ticket on Gene Silva to get the belt at the end of 2026. Okay. I got a 1-unit shot at 5-1 odds. Gene Silva champion, end of 2026. And then the rematch for gold between those two, first month of January 2027. It's going to be gorgeous. It's going to be just beautiful. 1994. What is going on? He says, catching you right before starting my fast. Shouldn't be watching a gambling addict during Ramadan, but it's one of the best MMA podcasts, and I will tip the cap to you, my friend. Thank you very much for the compliment. I think. Good luck on your fast. I know that is not easy. Props to you. Thank you for tuning in and supporting. I will do my best not to tempt you here on the show, even though that you might have to plug your ears a couple times. That's what it's all about. That's what I'm doing here, right? Like I'm a gambling degenerate, so I'm apologizing in advance. Boogie, what is up, my man? D in the house. What is going on? The It Factor MMA, Barry Lang. The crew is here. Thank you all very much for jumping in. It does seem that our guest is having some technical difficulties, but that's okay. That's okay. We are working our way through it. And there he is, just in time. Guys, one of your favorites, one of my favorites, one of the coolest guys in the gambling space. We are breaking down UFC London this week with none other than our good friend Liam Picks Fights. Liam, welcome to the show. How you doing, buddy?
What's going on, my brother? Dealt with a little bit of tech issues, so I appreciate you being flexible with me, my guy. But yeah, I've been here in the backstage trying to get my camera to work. Now we're ready to rumble, and I'm excited to break down the fights, my man. It's a relentless schedule. We got a lot of UFC fight cards all in a row, so it's right back to work this week, my man, and hopefully we can find some good spots in London. It's been a slow start to the year for me, my man. It's been tough. So, Lord willing, this is the week we turn it around, get things right.
My friend, I am right there with you. And frankly, I think it's that way across the industry as far as our gambling circle goes, right? Like all the people that hang out on formerly known as MMA Twitter, right? Everybody seems to be kind of slacking a little bit to start the year. It's been a tough schedule. There have been some upsets, but not the ones you think would be the upsets. So it's been a weird year gambling. And I wanted to talk about last week's card just briefly because this is what I'm talking about. I opened my mouth, stuck my foot in it, and then tripped down a flight of stairs. I somehow managed not to make money on this card, and I don't know how or why. So Liam, the plan, I stuck to the plan. Okay. I'm guilty of having bad plans, but you can never say that I'm going to bitch out on those plans once they're made. I was always intending on betting Sam Hughes live after the first round against Piera Rodriguez. So she's plus 340, plus 350. And I went ahead and hit that live, hoping that she would fight her way back in. I have to give a huge shout out to Piera Rodriguez and anybody who bet her at minus 150, because I assumed that she was going to do similar to what she did in her last fight, which is a lot of grappling, which seems to tire her out. And that's where I thought Sam Hughes would have made some improvements, made some adjustments, maybe turn up a little bit sooner, and she would take that fight over. Piera apparently decided no grappling whatsoever, and she was just going to strike the entire fight. And it was a situation where her power shots landing were far more effective than anything Sam could offer, and she just never deviated from it. So it was a 30-27, never left Sam a window to kind of fight her way back in. Zero respect for the striking power. Hats off. Just a perfect game plan and a perfect performance from Piera Rodriguez. But I started off in the hole, betting on my girl Sam Hughes, thinking she'd be the more improved of the two. So that was a bit of a rough start for my night. And then from there, I actually did decently well on picks as far as the night goes. I'm kicking myself because Mesquita inside the distance was minus 150, and that's one of those low-hanging fruit spots where you really don't like to lay chalk on an inside the distance prop or something, but this one was just so obvious. Whether it was a ground and pound TKO or a sub, I talked about it, and somehow I just didn't click the button. You know what I mean? Like that was finding a $10 bill on the street, and I just didn't bend over to pick it up. So I'm frustrated at myself for that one. But Brad Tavares, Eric Anders, I was all in on Brad fading the retirement of Eric Anders, and that's a move I'll go back to every time. right? That's like, I planned on betting Sam Hughes live after round 1. I will always fade the guy retiring, coming into the fight, knowing they're hanging it up after it's done. Shout out your boy. Props to Eric Anders for coming in shape for his final fight, for coming in locked in, not fading, not giving up, even after he got dropped. I can't believe Brad Tavares tried to grapple with this man, Liam. Like, that was one of the biggest facepalm moments for me, was Brad knocks him to the floor in round 2. Anders is fading. He's tired. The grappling isn't working. And Brad Tavares jumps on his back and tries to, like, rough the bigger man on the mat, and then tires himself out, gets reversed, end up on bottom. Like, I feel like I should have cashed that ticket, Liam. I really do. Because if he had welcomed Anders back to the feet, I'm almost certain he would have knocked him out at the end of the second round if he had just made him get back up. It's a very, very frustrating result for me there on that one. I had the amazing call with Elijah Smith, pat myself on the back, got the 10-1 prop on the submission, but I didn't bet his inside the distance, Liam. What am I doing? I parlayed him, but inside the distance was plus 250. I could have played that very easily. I said he was going to look, hindsight, better than minus 200. I said he was going to finish him and make it look easy. I caught the sub prop, which thank God I did that, but I could have made far more money on that read, and I was very confident in that read. Steven Asplund, I bet the KO prop for a half unit. He dropped Vitor Petrino 3 times. Like, I don't know how that fight didn't end with me cashing a KO prop ticket from Steven Asplund. I did fall into the trap of backing my guy, Chris Kurtis. Shout out to Miktabek Oralbai, because I was high on this guy before, Liam. Nobody has ever thrown Chris Kurtis around the cage like that. I mean, 170, 185, 205, does not matter. Nobody's ever physically handled Chris Kurtis like that. So bad bet, but, got to shout out the guy for being way more impressive than even I anticipated for him to be. Looks like Charles Johnson robbed Bruno Silva. I stayed clear of that one. I felt really bad for anybody taking the dog shot on Bruno Silva. Somehow Ion Cutelaba ends up being the dog of the week. I did hit him live. Felt good about that. Got a little bit back on that one right before he jumped guillotine. I always said on that fight that it comes down to the physicality, Liam. Ion is a bully. And if he can out-physical you, he wins the fight. That's just how it works. I thought Umar C was going to out-tough him out. As soon as I saw Ion reversing and taking down Umar C, I jumped in as fast as I could. Because, like, writing's on the wall at that point. If Ion can bully you, he's going to bully you. Banger of a fight with Rahiki and Hardwick. Feel bad for the guy. Got his jaw broken after getting wheeled out in a wheelchair literally in his first fight. It's been a tough go for him to start his UFC career. Banger of a fight between Fili and Delgado. I already shouted out Jillian Robertson. Proud of her for eating those illegal elbows to the back of the head and still managing to grind her way to a victory. And then Kevin Vallejos is just absolutely incredible. I didn't have a whole lot of action down the final stretch here for the main card. I was very front loaded. Most of my stuff was on the undercard. And I know I kind of rapid fired through all of that. I had a lot that I wanted to touch on. Did you have any particular results or thoughts or comments on last week's card before we dive into London here?
Oh, I could just briefly say I was on Bruno Silva, so that was a tough one. That's a couple times this year, man, where I felt like I had a really good bet. Eduardo Mora plus 280. I thought that was a great bet. Didn't cash. Johnny Vasquez plus 550. I thought it was a great bet. Didn't cash. So it's just been one of those years so far where, I feel like I've been seeing some of these dogs like with a good chance just haven't come through. And Bruno Silva, another one of those, right? Like, was it a close fight? Yes. Did I think it could have went either way? Sure. Was I disappointed, and did I think that we had done enough? Yes. So that was disappointing. Like, I thought 80% of the time Bruno Silva gets that decision. So frustrating. But ultimately, you just got to keep pushing. I've literally seen the highest highs and the lowest lows in this game. So that's why, a little bit of a cold run, no skin off my back. I've come back from worse. So I'm ready to rumble, my man.
I hear you. I'm ready to rumble too. And I thought last week was going to be my comeback because I am on the most epic downslide of anybody ever doing content in the space here. So I'm ready to come back with a vengeance. And I feel the same way you do, where I think I'm seeing the board really clearly. I'm just not clicking the right buttons, it seems, and fumbled the bag. last week. So I'm ready to get after it this week and see if we can fix that. So everybody do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the show if you haven't. We're about to break down UFC London from top to bottom. Liam picks fights, one of the best guys in the space. Please support him as well. His social media and his YouTube are listed in the description below. You can find all of his info there so you can further support him and his channel and content as well. Hit that like button. Let's get into it. First fight of the night. We have got Movsar Evloev. What am I doing? I clicked the wrong tab, Liam. I start at the bottom. I don't start at the top. What is wrong with me? First fight of the night is Melissa Mullins, and she is taking on Luana Dread Carolina. I like this fight a lot, Liam, and I actually like both of these ladies a lot as far as the way that they get out there and fight. Melissa Mullins is 7-2. She's 34 years old. She is a IBJJF Nogi world champion, very good grappler. She's coming off a loss to Dyer Zelezniakova, and it seems like she's always in these close, grindy, grimy type of fights. She's got a nice jab, and she does throw straight shots, but she wants to clinch. She wants to get in there. She wants to trip you, knock you off balance. She's got a good body lock takedown, and then she's got really, really crushing top pressure. Like, if she gets on top of you, you're in serious trouble. She very much is in control, knows how to make you carry her weight. A couple fights back, she was handling Nora Cornell. And then Nora did that thing she does where she kind of catches a second wind in the middle of the fight. It's like someone sticks her with some dopamine right in the middle of the fight. She looks tired, and then all of a sudden she whoops your ass. She completely fell apart in that fight, got beat, dropped her next fight. Bounced back in her next fight against Claudia Segula with one of the craziest ground and pound sequences we've ever seen. I mean, schoolyard bully style, man, pinning one arm down and then just like punching in the head with the other arm. It was really fun to watch. So I feel like Melissa Mullins is somebody who's kind of low-key, underrated, very tough, very durable, willing to get after it. I like her. Generally speaking, I like her. It's just she's going to have trouble if she can't get the grappling going. Now, Luana Carolina, 11-5, 32 years old. I've actually been a supporter of hers for a long time now. I feel like she's never really gotten the rub she deserves. She's a little underrated. Everyone thinks she's just kind of a can. We did pretty well on that 3-fight win streak that she went on, but she is 3-3 in her last 6. And at the end of the day, the 3 women that she beat, nothing to write home about. Ivana Petrovic, Julija Stoliarenko, Lucy Pudilova. I mean, names that are either barely hanging on and or cut. She has a split decision loss to JoJo Wood, who, frankly, Liam, I don't think that's a bad loss. JoJo is always a very tough out, but she's also retired now at this point. So that also doesn't age particularly well. She's kind of a gatekeeper at this point. And I mean like a middle of the road gatekeeper. She's not a gatekeeper to the stars. You can beat Luana Carolina if you're any good. But if you're struggling to hold a UFC roster spot or you're not going to make it, she'll whoop your ass. I like her a lot, and she's working really hard on her grappling over the last 3 years or so. You've seen kind of the evolution of her grappling game. She's a little bit more dangerous down there. She's attacking chokes. She's very good in the clinch. She's got kind of a Muay Thai striking style with knees and elbows and all that kind of stuff. My worry here is she's got 68% takedown defense. Her last 8 opponents have taken her down, and most of them have taken her down more than once over the course of her fights. So I look at this first line of the night, and of course it's the sketchiest fight on the card. It's low-level women's MMA, and it's got my blood pumping. You've got Melissa Mullins, who is a -102 +100. Like, we're talking the closest of underdogs here. And Luana Carolina -115, -120, somewhere in that ballpark, slight favorite. I kind of lean Melissa Mullins here, Liam. I'm not gonna lie. I've seen enough from her that I think she belongs in the UFC, and her grappling is such a big edge, I feel like, in this fight, that while, yes, she's going to struggle on the feet with someone like Luana Carolina, and Carolina does do a good job of exploding, trying to get back to her feet, I do think she'll just be out-hustled when it comes to the ground game. And I do think she'll catch kicks, and I do think she'll knock her over when she throws knees. And I could see Melissa Mullins getting her to the ground here, and if she does do that, I think she looks hindsight -250. So early lean to Melissa Mullins. Have not pulled the trigger. I actually don't have any action coming into the podcast as of now. I have a couple thoughts. I've got a couple things I want to bet, but I want to kind of talk them through with you and the chat here first before I pull the trigger on anything. So tell me your thoughts. How you liking this fight, and which side do you lean here for the first fight of the night?
Yeah, excuse me. I expected Mullins to be better than what we've seen from her in the UFC, frankly,
That's fair.
just based on the credentials and the fact that she had a pretty successful regional career. But when you look at it, I just think that she's had some extenuating circumstances. She's dealt with some stuff in her personal life. That's stuff that doesn't really show up in the box score, but I do think it's kind of affected her performances. And I think maybe I don't want to speak out of turn, but I don't know if she had a relationship with a coach or something and then changed gyms as a result of that. But, just some deal like that where, big life changes. So I think that when you look at Mullins and how she wins this fight, the path is pretty clear, right? Like Luana Carolina has had some awkward grappling moments. I mean, she has one of the ugliest submission losses in UFC history, with all due respect. Like Ariane Lipski just grabbing her in a knee bar that looked like, something that you wouldn't see every day, right? Like it hasn't been done before or since type of deal, right? Like it's just really ugly to get finished like that. And obviously it hasn't happened since, but fights a pretty low level of competition. And her only finish in the UFC is against Julija Stoliarenko, who's like one of the most prolific gassers in the division. So like, if you just last long enough with her out there, like you're going to win. Like she's going to just have nothing left to give. So I think that when you look at this kind of matchup, like Luana Carolina probably styles on her if it's just, a stand-up fight for the duration, but I don't expect it to be. I think both these women spent about half their fights like standing and half on the ground. And I just think the difference is, while this fight's on the feet, I think that Melissa Mullins will probably get her ass whooped, but like take the whooping. And I just think she'll have a lot more success on the ground. I think the crowd will be behind her as well. So I lean towards Mullins here as a slight dog, but I mean, has she been inspiring in the UFC? Like, do you have a high confidence interval when she goes to fight? No, you certainly don't. But I just think, like, press to, pick a side. You give me the slight plus money, on the girl who I think has wrestling and grappling upside.
Okay. Yeah, you and I are kind of feeling the same vibe there on that one. And again, I haven't bet it because that's where I got burned so bad last week, right? Just full chested believing in my girl Sam Hughes and stuff like that I was like, those are the ones. If I could have found a way to dodge that bullet, I would be sitting in profit this week. So I want to sit with this one. I want to make sure I'm not diving feet first into another bad bet that's just going to make me roll my eyes at the end of the night when she doesn't quite do enough.
I will leave one last thing here, which is just that if Luana Carolina was the dog, she would fit a system for me, which is a younger fighter with more professional and UFC experience. So that's the other thing that makes me like, if I don't have a strong read and the system's kind of going the other way, I'm happy to pass on a fight like this. If anything, one thing I'll mention is it looked to me like the early numbers on violence were pretty big. And like Melissa Mullins is a defensive void. Like, Nora Cornola is just landing clean shots up the middle. And then she's pretty aggressive when she gets on top in terms of looking for her offense, trying to get violent there. So I think if she does get top position, like that could lead to a finish. And then I think that if she doesn't, that could lead to a finish, for Luana Carolina, even though she hasn't been a great finisher. I just think that Melissa Mullins is like pretty bad defensively on the feet.
Yeah. That makes some sense to me too. And dread can hurt some people with, like I said, those knees, those elbows. There's always the chance for a cut, stoppage, things of that nature. Not a bad look. I don't mind it. I don't mind it whatsoever. All right, everybody, bouncing on down the road here. Our next women's MMA fight is our second fight of the night. You've got Shanelle Dyer, and she's taking on Ravena Oliveira. Again, Liam, am just gonna say it. I like this fight. I like this fight a lot. Shanelle Dyer is 6-1. She's 24 years old. She goes by The Nightmare. She's training out of Great Britain top team, and she is a PFL Europe candidate. She, after having 2-3 PFL Europe fights, gets on the Dana White's Contender Series, loses on Dana White's Contender Series, and yet still gets the call here for UFC London, which I find very interesting. She's got very snappy kicks, man. She mixes them up well. She goes head and body. She chops at the calf. I mean, if you watch her tape, you can hear her coaches yelling, "Money in the bank," every time she goes to the low kicks in round one. Like, they understand you want to slow your opponent down. You want to hurt that calf early in the fight. So I do like that, strategically speaking. Decent footwork, circles around the outside, pumps that jab constantly. It looks like everything checks out when it comes to the way that she moves and the way that she strikes. But you watch a couple of these fights, and you were talking about Melissa Mullins being defensively void. My God, Liam, this girl eats punches for breakfast. She doesn't know how to avoid them. She gets hit with everything. She does not move her head. Now, I will give her a little bit of a compliment and say that her chin has checked out, but I don't remember who said it first. It might have been you, but like, if your best compliment is that you're tough, that's not a good compliment when it comes to the fight game, right? If that's what everyone wants to shout out as your best quality, I don't like that for her. You look at the fight she had on Dana White's Contender Series, and that's a step towards the UFC, right? You're fighting in the regionals. PFL Europe isn't even really the PFL, so I'm not sure how much we count that as far as a regional show, right? I don't want to call the PFL regionals, but PFL Europe, man, that might be regionals. She gets to the UFC Dana White's Contender Series, and she's facing this girl, Fioro, she's got 6 inches of height on, something like that. Liam, she got dropped twice in round 1. And I mean, legs collapsed, baby giraffe, like splayed out, looking like Johnny Walker in there. I thought it was over. I don't know how she got back up and kept going after the second drop. I think other refs would have stopped it. And then she got stumbled at the end of the round again. So like, she gets dropped twice, she gets stumbled once. Round 2 starts, she gets dropped again. It was like, oh my Lord, I couldn't believe they let the fight continue. So by the end of the fight, it somehow makes it the distance. It somehow goes all 15. And Dana White is on his feet. He's clapping. He's cheering. He gives both women contract because they just fought their hearts out. The other girl's got some bruising on her face and stuff, but it's like, damn, dude, she got her ass whooped for 15 straight minutes. You watch that fight and you look at both their faces and you're like, oh, it was a hell of a fight, right? No, like, really watch it. She got stomped for 15 minutes in that fight. So the heart checks out. I will give her that. But she got her ass whooped. Now, Ravena Oliveira, she's an interesting case. She's been a little bit disappointing so far here in the UFC. 29 years old. She lost to Tainara Lisboa back in 2023. And then she had a really long layoff. She dropped not 1, but 2 weight classes, which it's something we really don't see all that often. So she's coming off a 2-year break. She drops all the way down from 135 to 115, and she takes on Stephanie Luciano, who is nasty, Liam. I like Stephanie Luciano a lot, and she came out with her hair on fire in that fight. She was going forward. Her striking looked greatly improved. She's a natural grappler, and it looks like she's done nothing but strike for the last 2 years. If she gets on top of you, she's got really good shoulder pressure, really heavy from top. She's from Nova União, great ground and pound. I really liked Ravena as a prospect. It's just tough to like her based on how her results have been in the UFC. I think she's a brown belt. Maybe she's been promoted by now, but I believe she's a BJJ brown belt. Her hands are pretty fast. And for her first time at 115 pounds, for the first 2 rounds against Luciano, I mean, she was losing, but she was holding her own. She looked like she was improved and she belonged, and she had a couple of moments herself, but Luciano was just a touch faster. Luciano was able to avoid some of the punches, and she was countering her. And so then she ends up getting dropped and hurt in the 3rd round and gets finished. So the record looks really bad. But again, I feel like the context kind of matters here. I'm looking at this line, Liam, and I'm scratching my head, because Dyer is a minus 470 favorite. 470. Coming off a fight that she lost and got dropped minimum 3 times. I went back and I watched that first round Ravena Oliveira had against Stephanie Luciano. And I'm like, tell me why this girl is not going to crack and club and sub this PFL dropout. Like, I don't understand this line one bit. If you want to tell me that this girl beats Ravena and Ravena's not UFC level and she sucks to high heaven, I will not argue with you. I believe you. That's probably accurate. But why the hell is she minus 470? This is maybe one of the most egregious lines I've seen the entire year. And I think they're going to force my hand, Liam, because I don't think I can let this go. I just don't think I'm humanly capable of not clicking this button, because it's low-level women's MMA, and I've seen Dyer hurt and dropped more times than I can count. Ravena Oliveira, trial by fire. She's losing to some really good girls in the UFC, but she's also fighting pretty well with them. So UFC level experience plus 350, man, count me in. I'm taking the shot, and I'm gonna have to go for it. I think the club and sub is super live, by the way.
Yeah, man, I've been waiting for like Ravena Oliveira to look like a good fighter at some point, and it still hasn't happened yet. It may never happen, but when you look at a matchup like this, you know, frankly, to your point, I think the last two results for Dyer were a loss and a split decision win. Those aren't the makings of minus 400 typically, right? I think you could reasonably ask, like, what is Ravena Oliveira good at after watching her fights in the UFC? Going from a big, she was a moderate size underdog up at 135, frankly, against Tainara Lisboa, who I thought she'd have a chance to win that fight. Like I thought she'd be able to go out there, and Tainara Lisboa's kind of got old hips and like kind of can be ragdolled around a little bit if you know how to grapple, and just these certain things that I thought it would be, maybe a winnable fight for her. And she didn't look very good in that fight. I think when you look back, the problem for me is the box scores, Clint. She's landed 39 significant strikes in 5+ rounds of fighting. Like she's just not landing a lot of offense, and that's hard. If you don't land, it's hard to get the judges on your side. It's also hard to do damage. And then it's like, okay, well, what about the takedown game? Well, she got out wrestled by Tainara Lisboa, 3 takedowns to 2. And you say, okay, well, she's up a weight class there. She moves down a couple weight classes. Then she goes 3 takedowns to 0, for her opponent, right? When she goes against Luciano, and then a submission attempt. So the total results are 78 significant strikes absorbed compared to 39 landed. She's landed 2 takedowns. She's conceded 6, and then she got 1 submission attempt off. And, I can just say, I think I bet on her. Let me pull up my Bet MMA and see if I did. I bet on her, Clint, as a matter of fact, in both of her fights. So, like, now I feel like I'm almost obligated to go again, just because if she now wins, I'll be
when that
in my hands, right? But I also just will say, like, as somebody that's better in her last couple fights, like, watching them, I was like, fuck, like, this girl is not very good at anything. So I think that they tried to set up this fight like, hey, Dyer lost last time. And here's the other thing I'll say. I think 4-0 would absolutely do horrible, horrible things to either one of these women. And it's just because 4-0 hits like a truck, and she applies a lot of really steady forward pressure. And most women can't really hit that hard. And I say that with all due respect, but just like, it's hard to keep somebody off of you if you can't hit them that hard, and they can just crush you whenever they hit you. So it's just like, I felt like Dyer was the one like touching, landing a nice combination. Everything looks pretty and smooth. And then it's like, da-da-da! And she just throws like 3 big punches and hurts her real bad. And I feel like, 4-0 would probably do the same thing to either one of these ladies. Like, I think Ravena Oliveira would probably get diddy bopped and probably get finished, honestly, too. So that's the reason for me that this feels a little bit like a crapshoot. But you know what I'll never be doing? Laying the minus 400 with a WMMA debutante off a loss and a split decision win. So, yeah, I think it's a dog or pass by definition, but I don't know if I can make it the third time the charm, with how disappointed I've been the last 2 times, but I have better the last 2 times. So certainly I saw something in her on a regional tape, but.
See, and that's the thing. I feel like I saw the same things that you did in the regional tape. And I actually had Tainara in the first fight against them. That's been my issue with these ladies is I was a Tainara Lisboa believer, and that was the one that convinced me I was right, and I've lost money since. So yeah, tough call there. But I was tempted. I don't think I actually bet her, but I was tempted to bet her against Stephanie Luciano in the last fight as well. I just think this is a situation where you lower the bar enough and eventually she'll find that win. I don't think Dyer is UFC caliber. I also have seen where Dyer panic wrestles. All of us, we like to praise fighters who can level change. You get hurt, you get clipped, hit the takedown, you get on top, you're good to go, right? But Liam, she's never actually gotten that takedown. I've seen her hit double legs, and it's like running into brick walls every time she does it. She doesn't know how to shoot a takedown. So you're giving me a Nova Unyao, BJJ brown and or black belt. And if she clips this girl on the chin once, this Muay Thai fighter thinks I'm going to shoot a double. I'm just saying, I think the club and sub is going to be there, Liam. So I am, you're telling me it's a crapshoot. I will throw a dart at plus 360 on a crapshoot any day of the week. I think this is a 50-50 women's MMA fight. I truly firmly believe that. I will take the plus 360. That's going to be a bet this week. And I am going to bet Whether I do inside the distance or I just go balls out with the sub and just, unzip and put him on the counter here and call my shot with the sub, I really think she can finish this chick. So I'm for better or for worse, first play of the night is me just, lighting my hair on fire here. So everybody pray for me in London. Next fight up, you guys, we have got Shem Rock, and he is taking on Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwady. And this is a really interesting fight, Liam, because Al-Selwady is a bit of a weird fighter here in the UFC. He's 15-4. He's 30 years old. And he's only had one fight since Dana White's Contender Series. He lost to Loic Radzhabov back in 2024. He's been sidelined basically ever since. Now, they call this guy the Pride of Palestine. There may be some traveling issues, mixed in there. Several of his fights, I think 4 of them now, have fallen apart. He withdrew twice. 2 of his opponents have withdrawn. So it's just been a nightmare getting this guy scheduled to get back in there for any kind of activity, but they have been trying. I noted in the Loic Radzhabov fight, or Radzhabov, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Loic, he looked really small, Liam. That was kind of my thing with Al-Selwady, is I kind of liked what I saw from him, but he looked a little small. And that eventually paid out, right? Loic eventually got him in the 3rd round, hit him with some big stuff. He almost got knocked out in round 1. He showed some real heart, some real durability, some toughness. He recovered. He fought his way back into it. Still ended up paying for it later. This guy's been knocked out several times, Liam. I believe he's been knocked out 4 times in his MMA career. So the chin is a question. I think he's fighting at the wrong weight class. And even though he's good with his boxing, very compact, quick jab, cuts good angles, he just gets hit. And I don't think he can take the shots that are coming back his way, unfortunately. He is a guy that's willing to cheat. So if you like betting on people that'll do everything they can to win, I've seen him grab so many fences, it's not even funny. If you try to take this guy down, he'll do whatever it takes to get back up to the feet. He will take that 1st, 2nd, and 3rd warning from Herb Dean before he gets back up to the feet. No problem. Now, his opponent here, Shem Rock, is another weird one. 12-2-1, 32 years old. So a guy that I kind of thought was like 28, 29, not some young gun prospect like this guy. Now's the time, Shem, right? He's in his prime. Got to get in there. Got to get it done now if you're going to make some waves here. He lost his UFC debut by decision to Nurullo Aliev. And most people would hear that and kind of shrug and be like, yeah, big deal. Nurullo Aliev is just a monster grappler, Liam. I mean, a guy with relentless pace, crazy cardio, never stops coming forward. But the trick is here, Nurullo Aliev beat his ass. It was not the typical wet blanket Aliev performance that you see. He walked forward nonstop and had Shem's head ping-ponging around the cage. It was insane. I had an Aliev ticket, and I was absolutely clenching my butt because I didn't think he was going to come out and strike that night. I was terrified. I fully expected him to wrestle, and when he didn't follow the game plan, I was horrified. So Aliev bum rushes this guy, caught him off guard, had him on the back foot, and then in the 3rd round, when Aliev did finally start to slow down because he's not used to striking like that, he just went right back to his wet blanket, and it was no problem for him at that point to grind out the rest of the fight. So it got hairy a couple times there. Thank God I was able to cash my ticket, but I feel like this is a much, much better fight for Shem Rock. This dude's a finisher. He controls range pretty well. He's got that karate style where he likes to explode in and out. He likes those side kicks to, the legs and the body and just explodes into range. He's got a pretty good guard grappling wise, good butterflies. He sweeps and reverses a lot from what I've seen. And then he's very offensive with his grappling as well. Fast level changes, looks for damage when he's on the mat, good back takes, quick subs. He trains with Paddy Pimblett. So there's a little bit of Paddy there when you watch this guy on the mat. I kind of feel like this is a bounce back for Shem Rock. Am I crazy? Shem is a plus 105 underdog. Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwady is the minus 125 favorite. And just given the size discrepancy between these guys and the chin concerns with Al-Selwady, I'm very tempted to bet Shem here. What do you think of this one, Liam?
Yeah, we're going to agree on this one. I'm just not an Al-Selwady guy in terms of from the time he came to Contender Series, I wasn't really sold on his game. I was really worried about his chin. And I think some of those concerns were borne out in the UFC, right? When you just look at a guy who is really like talented at winning minutes, but they just have like an off switch or like something that could just make it go catastrophically wrong at any time. That just feels to me like you're flirting with disaster there. And, you know, when you look at a guy like Shamrock, like, yeah, he took that ass whooping like a man, right? Like he was still there on the other side. Like he's a pretty durable guy. And I just think that, you know, one thing I'd say to my wrestlers as a coach is like, you got to stay in the match in order to give yourself a chance to win. Like if we're in the match, then we're one exchange away from winning. But if we lose, like if we get pinned in the first period or something, like then we don't have that opportunity anymore. It's over, right? So you got to do the next right thing to just stay in the fight. And I feel like Shamrock, you know, he's a tough guy to get out of there. And he's a guy that can finish you. And that's a dangerous guy for 15 minutes, right? And after he took that ass whooping, he was a lot less dangerous, right? And Nurullo Aliev, just pretty brutal style matchup, all things considered. But when you look at, okay, he got his 15 minutes out. Now he's going to feel a little bit more comfortable. He's fighting at home in London. Good thing for him. And, you know, on the other side, you were talking about some of the reason that he hasn't been fighting. Al-Selwady's dealt with a lot of injuries. He's dealt with a lot of, you know, things outside the cage, I think, that have been holding back his level of activity. And so wish him nothing but the best. But when you haven't been active and you've had some serious injuries and you had a sketchy chin and some really serious knockout losses in the regionals prior, all that for me is just enough red flags to say, laying the chalk with that side, no, I would not be doing that. Dogger pass for me here as well.
Okay. And I was talking about Shim's grappling ability, Liam, and one fight in particular stuck out for me. You guys have got to see this.
Oh, and it goes to this choke again. This is top
That's tighter. This is the move. Shamrock looking to get the finish. Pakani is going to go out. That's it. That is it. One and done. Shamrock gets the...
Clint, I forgot to say the back take is incredible. That is the best part of this game.
It's so good. And Liam, he was on that dude's back for the full 3 minutes of the fight. He took his back at the beginning, stayed in that body triangle back position. He readjusted that choke 3-4 different times. And then the way that man just crumpled, like when you saw his head go, it's like something out of a Resident Evil movie when like he looked like a zombie up there, man. That squeeze is unreal. I really think that Shem is going to have some success here, and I'm glad you sided with me, Liam. I needed just a little bit of reinforcement on that one because Shem is going to be our Link Memorial dog of the week. You guys, he's plus 105, and I know I try to stay away from these short dogs, especially when they might go to even money or flip to favorite, things like that. That happened a couple of weeks ago, but I don't think I'm taking the shot on Oliveira, but I can't make her the dog of the week. You know what I mean? So the dog of the week this week is going to be Shem. It's a close to pick 'em line. I will be betting that this evening before we jump off the show. Next up, we have got some big boys. Louis Sutherland returns and he's taking on Brando Pericic. Thank you very much. Shout out Uncle Wheezy for the pronunciation coaching the last time Brando was in the cage. He told me about that one. Guys, I feel really weird about Louis, right? 10-4, 32 years old. He got his foot ripped off by Walter Walker in his UFC debut. And a lot of us were talking about like, well, Walter only has the heel hook. Like he's been heel hooking guys that are kind of meh. Like this is a real true heavyweight. Is he going to be so easy to just take down and handle? Like, I don't know. So it was one of those weird ones where I almost talked myself into a Sutherland bet against Walter Walker. And no, Walter just rips his fourth foot off in the UFC and continues sniffing toes on his way home to Brazil. This is a big boy, though. We have no idea what to expect from him after that particular fight. He was supposed to fight against Justin Taffa in Perth. Taffa pulled, and he's just man mountain, right? Basic game. Walks forward, straight shots down the middle. He's bigger and he hits harder than anybody else he's really dealt with. So I don't know how far he's going to go in the UFC, Liam. He seems a little basic, a little simple. Basics are good, right? Like, but at a certain point, he might not have what it takes at the UFC level. But at 10-4, he's got the experience you're looking for. He's got the size. He hits hard. He's interesting. Brando is 31 years old. And he was scheduled for Dana White's Contender Series, but somehow he got the call straight up to the UFC instead. He won his debut via first round ground and pound, and this dude's got some serious hands. This guy's got some very heavy hands. He's got very good killer instinct. He's got really strong hips, and he's got a really, really good smothering top game. You do not want this man on top of you. So here's the thing. I'm coming off a fight where I bet Chris Kurtis saying he'll be able to defend takedowns and he won't get smothered in the grappling. Guy's strength from this chair is really hard to figure out. You know, if you touch somebody physically, if you get in there and grapple with them, if you're at the UFC and you've got those stats, you can see the punching numbers, you know exactly how strong everybody is. These bets would be a whole lot easier. But looking at these giant 265-pound men and being, that guy's stronger. Like, how? Why? Like, we really can't tell until they get in there and they start shoving each other around. Now, obviously, that, you know, context clues, when you've got 3, 4, 5 UFC fights, you can kind of patch some stuff together, but you're not always accurate even then. So I would like to say that Brando is going to walk into this fight, do exactly what Walter Walker did, put this man on his back and pound his face through the canvas. That's kind of what I think is going to happen here. But would it shock me at all if Louis kind of got his shit together in this fight, was able to shuck 1 or 2 takedowns, and this kid only has 6 professional fights, punch him in the mouth and ice him in this fight? It wouldn't surprise me in the least, Liam. This is one of those greasy heavyweight fights where this is going to be all fireball and popcorn. I want to drink. I want a snack. I'm watching this bad boy. I am not going to have my money anywhere near it. I will pick Brando for the sake of a pick, but we're not even talking a young prospect here. This is 31 versus 32, and the 32-year-old has twice the experience of the 31-year-old. So lots of red flags. My money is nowhere near this fight. What are you doing?
Yeah, I don't really plan on betting on either one of these guys. You know, I did think it could pose some, you know, interesting problems for Walter Walker to go wrestle a guy of this size, but the one thing I've always said is that, you know, heavyweights can't grapple, with all due respect. So, like, obviously, you know, besides like 5 of them, right? So there's a handful of them at the top of the division. Hats off to those guys. But just the average heavyweight, their grappling is so much lower level than like the average guy at 155 or something. It's not even comparable, right? So I think that that's like a difference maker in that last matchup that's just not really there in this one, right? Like, I think that, you know, maybe Pericic could get a takedown or something, but like, does he just have like a insta-kill submission that he's going to be falling back on or something? No. So for me, what's interesting about this fight is that Louis Sutherland has like made a career at heavyweight of being an exister, right? Like a couple of guys have outgrappled him or took him down, you know, just outworked him for the 15, but nobody's really just knocked him out, you know, like taking him out of the fight, except for Walter Walker just sits back to the heel and takes him out of there, right? But that's kind of, like I said, a unique circumstance. So I think that Pericic has a chance to go out there and just knock him out, right? Like, he's clearly a dangerous guy. He hits very hard. He's a big guy. He commits to his offense. But to your point, he's never been in an extended fight, you know, where there could be some grappling, where there could be some takedowns, back and forth action. And Sutherland, good exister, right? So if you just don't get him out of there and you land a bunch of big shots and you thought you had him out of there, so you keep throwing a bunch of big shots, and now you're tired, I think that's how Pericic loses this fight. So, you know, when you have the aura of invincibility type of thing going for you and you feel like, hey, I'm going to go out there and kill or be killed, like, you know, that's a dangerous game at the UFC level. But I don't think Sutherland is particularly a UFC level fighter, right? Like, we certainly haven't had that proven yet. You know, he got embarrassed in quick fashion. Hey, we can't say that he's not a UFC fighter definitively, but he hasn't really proven himself at this level either.
Makes sense to me. All right. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time belaboring the point on that one, you guys. Should be a greasy heavyweight fight. God love him. Can't wait to watch it. Next up, we have got Antonio Tricoli, and he is taking on Montas Kondratavius. I think Kondratavius. Close. Got to be close. Can't be that far off. That's a hell of a last name right there, Liam. Antonio Tricoli. What is there to say? 35 years old, bless you, 12-6, 3-fight losing streak, all by finish. Sharon Magomedov is, you know, I know the Pirate is something the UFC is trying to make a big deal out of, but frankly, I think he's buns. And they've wheeled a couple people out for him to beat so that he can have this shiny undefeated record, and making him fight, 170 pounders. And now they're giving him time to get his grappling shit in order. He can't knock anybody out, Liam. Like, but you know who he did knock out? He knocked out Antonio Trocoli. Antonio, I think I actually bet him that night because he's supposed to be a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Well, in the next 2 fights, he got submitted by Mansur Abdul-Malik and Tresean Gore, of all people. Pretty sad for a guy whose calling card in MMA is supposed to be that he's a BJJ black belt. He's a professional poker player now. He's dating Mackenzie Dern again, I think. They may have gotten back together or something like that. But I don't know what this guy's good at, Liam. On paper, he's a black belt, and grappling should be his thing. In the cage, he does not grapple very well. He doesn't strike very well. He gets knocked out. He gets frustrated. He slows down. Like, I don't know what to do with Antonio Trocoli. Like, there's absolutely nothing here. I don't know why he even got another fight. This has got to be the last fight of his contract. They're absolutely going Brundage style with him. They're just going to throw him to the wolves every single time until he gets somebody a highlight, and then they're going to let him go. His opponent, Montas, in this spot, is 26 years old, and I think we have good reason to be excited about this kid. It's his UFC debut off Dana White's Contender Series, and he's fighting out of Cage Warriors. There's a bunch of guys on this card that are coming from that area and fighting out of Cage Warriors. He apparently trains with armbar queen Julie Gistolia-Ranko, but my God, this kid is a fast starter, and he is relentless. He is reckless. He comes forward. His offensive grappling is wild. He throws heavy, hard shots, and he just kind of dives into you. He just car crashes in for a body lock, and then he wants to drag you to the ground. He has nasty clubbing power, Liam, and I mean devastating power. You guys have got to see this knockout.
Sometimes.
And that is not the first time he's done that, you guys. There are multiple highlights of his opponents being in almost like Gaethje Holloway-esque moments where both guys are kind of going at the same time, and you hear that thump when his right hand lands, and they just fall over. It's like when he decides to bite down and throw that right hand, he puts people to sleep. That thing is a hammer. His last 5 wins are all coming by way of round 1 knockout. It is a gross number. There's not a whole lot to say with him being a minus 500 favorite. The under 1.5 is minus 210 here. This is Montas. This is Montas by knockout. This is probably Montas by knockout round 1. You guys know I don't trust Cage Warriors. I don't trust Dana White's Contender Series. I don't like UFC newcomers who are making their debut, especially at giant, chalky price tags. But this is a complete fraud and a complete bum going against what looks to be an actual prospect who's got some serious upside. That's the only way I could look. They've made it impossible to bet. So I probably won't have any money on it. But I do expect this guy to knock Antonio Trocoli out, Liam.
Yeah, I would say, let me just take a look here. The ITD is absolutely cooked, but we have just seen this guy completely just folding the tent and offering up submissions, to get himself out of there in the first round. And it's not like Mantis has never submitted somebody before, right? Like, he's got a couple submissions on his record. He did submit somebody as well, on his amateur circuit. So I think that he's a guy that, he's got well-rounded skills. The problem for him is like I always talk about when somebody's a young MMA fighter, when they're, coming into the UFC and they haven't really had a lot of high-level fights, like, they're normally all offense, no defense, and they just come out swinging. They're super aggressive. And, that's what I think about him. Like, he's got great offense. He's really potent there. He's a tough guy. He's willing to swing. But I have seen him, like, out-grappled and, like, forced to capitulate, by a good opponent, but still saw it happen. I've seen him get marked up in even the fights that he won where he went out there and kind of swung wild. I've seen him get backed up to the fence. So, I do think he's still a work in progress, right? There's still things he's got to fix up. But Trocoli's the exact guy. Like, you could go out there, maybe work on a couple of skills, maybe get better at something. So I think, Trocoli's just sub or bust to me, in almost all of his fights. And I feel like in this fight too, and I don't think that it's like a 0% chance, because I do think, like, looking back at some of the footage, like, this guy, he's not a world-class grappler, right? Let's put it that simply. But I don't think Trocoli is either. I think Trocoli is just, I And I think that he's probably not taking his training as seriously as his opponent. So ultimately, I think he's going to get finished. I think he's much more likely to capitulate. But I've seen his opponent, Contratavitas, whatever, who's minus 475 to finish. And, I have seen him capitulate before as well. I just don't think this is the guy. So I'll be looking for, if you're a pressure wrestler that actually trains in the future, I'll be looking to maybe fade this guy just because I think that's the hole in his game he'll have to shore up to really compete at the highest levels. But I just, again, don't see Tricoli having much to give.
That makes sense to me. All right, guys, moving along. We're staying with the big boys here. Mario Pinto takes on Felipe Franco in what should be an absolute banger. Mario Pinto is 11-0, undefeated, 28 years old. He did get one of the biggest softball starts in the UFC, and he absolutely smashed it out of the park off Dana White's Contender Series. He got a round 2 knockout over Austin Lane, who we'll talk about a little bit later on in the card. Real quick 2-0 start to this guy's career. They gave him Jonathan Denise in his last fight, and frankly, it was robbing, man. It was blanket highway robbery because they made that thing even money because we all thought he was going to stand and strike, and we didn't know how his grappling would be. Well, Jonathan Denise has still not stepped foot inside of a wrestling gym or a jiu-jitsu gym or anything of the sort. So he put him on his back, and that was all she wrote. It was real easy for him at that point. He's built like a middleweight, Liam. He's super tall, he's lanky, he's skinny, he's slim, he's fast. Like, he's really quick. And I think that speed is going to give a lot of these big boys really a lot of problems. Very active jab, rolls and counters very well. He's very calm, and that's something I want to bring attention to because he knows how to be in the fight, and he doesn't panic. It's like he sees things coming and going very, very well. Sometimes I feel like he might be a little bit too calm. Some of his regional fights before, at least the last two, it looked like he didn't really have that killer instinct. I'm kind of backing off on that a little bit after his last two performances. It seems like he knows when to go a little bit more now than he used to. He's got thudding power, accurate hands. I don't know that he's a one-hitter quitter type of guy necessarily, but at heavyweight, it doesn't take a whole lot of volume to be able to put somebody down once you clip them and hurt them, especially if you're fast enough to follow up with 2 or 3 shots afterward. I really like this kid. Now, his opponent, Felipe, 8-1, 25 years old. He lost on Dana White's Contender Series to Freddie Vidal. That was that weird fight where Freddie missed weight, and it was kind of a back and forth sluggish grappling match where both guys looked like they were going to finish and then both them gassed out. And then, it was a weird back and forth type of fight. He got 2 wins on the regional scene, back-to-back round 1 KOs, and the UFC called him up and they're like, all right, you're good. He's very physical, bullying takedowns. And he showed in that fight on Contender Series that he's not just the round 1 or bust guy. He can kind of grind if he needs to. He just ran into a bigger grappler who happened to miss weight on the night that they fought. He's very good with his body lock. It's very hard to get him off once you get those. He does have big slam takedowns. He can just kind of rip you down to the ground. He's a BJJ black belt, and he does attack head chokes, starts chokes, headlocks, stuff like that. So a lot of people think of this guy as just a striker, but you dig a little deeper and it turns out he's actually got some grappling chops as well. So something maybe for us to keep in mind moving forward. I did get worried about the grappling though, because he was huffing really bad once it started getting going. He did get reversed. He did get swept by a guy that frankly, looked like me, the uncle that you wish would put a shirt on. He got out hustled on the mat by a guy like that. So it's like, I'm not sure he's so great on the mat, but it was good to see him kind of get some extra rounds because he really has just been that round 1 guy his entire MMA career, 10 wins all in the first. So it was his first fight ever getting out of the first round. He faced some adversity. He got that check, and now they're moving him up and he's taking on Mario Pinto, which I do find interesting because while Pinto has that, grappling in his back pocket that we saw, he was taking on little baby Jonathan Denise, who I think I could take down. So I don't know that that's a grappling win that we can hang our hats on here. I think they're going to strike. This guy's pretty dangerous striking, Liam. This is a fight that for the opposite reason, I don't want my money on because I don't know what to make of this one. We've got a minus 900 favorite in Mario Pinto and Felipe at plus 600, the underdog. I think he's being a little bit disrespected. Now, the problem here is I like Pinto better. I've got him circled. He's a guy I enjoy. He's a style I like. He's got the height and reach advantage. He's already got the UFC experience. So I'd make him the favorite. But minus 900, I feel like, is crazy. And we've got a 1.5. This is where I might be interested because the over 1.5 here is plus 130. Under 1.5 is minus 165. And it makes sense that the under 1.5 would be juiced, especially the way Felipe fights, right? It's all round one finishes, except for the fight with Freddie that got him out into the second round. But you look at Mario Pinto, his last 2 UFC fights have both finished in round 2. And he got really chinny Austin Lane, and he can't grapple Jonathan Denise. So 2 guys that have massive flaws. Well, what happens when he gets a guy who doesn't have quite as bad of flaws? Like, this over 1.5 might be that greasy heavyweight plus money spot that we've been looking for, Liam. I think that's the only thing here that has my attention, is maybe these guys respect the power enough with each other, or maybe there's enough cage pushing that we can get into round 2, and that over 1.5, that'd be kind of the only thing I'd be considering betting in this spot, because based on the money line, it's got to be dog or pass, but I don't want to bet the dog.
Yeah, man. And looking at the props, like Pinto round 2, I mean, obviously it's early in the week, is like plus 275. I mean, doesn't really get you out of bed, but that's kind of the way that I see it going as well. It's just like, I think his opponent could come out here and maybe take him down in the first round. We saw Austin Lane kind of hurt him in round 1. I just think Pinto's a guy that stays composed. There's a reason he's undefeated so far in his career. When he does get touched, stays within himself, recollects himself, gets a breath, and then he just starts going back on offense. And he's a big, long guy. He's a hard guy for guys to normally get inside and feel good, clean, getting off on their offense. And then he's touching you with the jab. He's keeping you at range. And he seems like a guy who just can pick up the finish late in the fight. I feel like Pinto 2-3 could be interesting here because Vidal, was kind of getting owned in parts of that fight, but he just was able to stick it out, stay in the fight, not give up on himself. And he was one exchange away from winning the fight, right? Like, then he gets the guy down when he's tired, and it was an ugly, sloppy choke. And like, do I think Mario Pinto's a better grappler? No, but like, if this guy goes out there and just spaz grapples and uses all his muscle and, spends his energy in 7 minutes, I think Mario Pinto will still have more energy left to give. And then could he out-grapple him? Could he, just stay in the top position, beat him up, kind of like he did to Denise? Like, wouldn't surprise me. So overall, that's kind of the way that I think, how do prospect losses happen? How do things go wrong? I mean, like 97% of Tapology votes are on Pinto. I like Pinto. I think he's a good prospect, but a Galpa Deluta guy, like, they're going to come in and try and grapple you, you'd think, just like generally speaking, especially if your opponent's Pinto and like, pretty scary guy to deal with on the feet, you'd think, given the size and the length, especially. So for me, those are the factors here, is like, maybe see what the submission prop is for the underdog here, because I feel like if I was his coach, I'd be like, hey, buddy, listen to me. We're going to shoot like our life depends on it, and we're going to spend the 7 minutes of cardio that we have trying to submit this guy.
I don't hate it. I think this is the kind of fight where you could get a little crazy. The numbers seem like they're way off compared to what I'm expecting the results to look like. Even if Pinto does get his hand raised, I don't know if he pays off a minus 900 price tag. So go nuts. That's definitely the kind of fight you can take a shot on. All right, guys, let's move it along. Next up, you've got Nathaniel Wood, and he's taking on Losene Keita. Keita? I'm not sure how to pronounce that one, Liam. I need to go back and do my research on that one. Nathaniel Wood, ever my nemesis, 22-6, 32 years old. He's a natural 135er who moved up to 145 a couple years ago, and he's been crushing it. He's on a 3-fight win streak up at 145 pounds. I thought it was the worst decision he ever made for his career, and turns out it was the best decision he ever made for his career. Great gas tank, and biggest thing he's got going for him, Liam, that recoverability. My God, he's a bit undersized at 145 pounds, and it simply does not matter. He's so good. He's so technical. He kind of reminds me of like a Frankie Edgar, obviously not stylistically speaking, but the way he was fighting people up a weight class because he was just that much more skilled. It didn't matter. He won the belt anyway, right? That's kind of how Nathaniel Wood feels at this point, is that he's just beating people's asses because he can up a weight class. The recoverability comes into play because he gets hurt in the first round of every single fight. He gets drilled with a big shot, and it seems like he almost needs that to wake him up. If you don't put him down in that first round, he fights his way back in. And I finally understood that. In his last fight, Liam, I made this exact same breakdown. I talked about the pros and the cons. I talked about how he's too small. I talked about how he can be hurt in the first round. And then on the night of the fight, I watched and I went, why the fuck have I never live bet this guy? Sure enough, he gets cracked hard in the first, and he's plus 165 or something like that going into round 2, and click. Like, he was the minus 300 favorite before the fight. He gets hurt in the first, and then he punches his way back in. It was a close fight. It was a contentious fight. I know a lot of people lost a lot of money on that split decision. I was very happy. I won money on my split decision with him punching his way back in. I don't know if he just, is old boys with the judges over there or what, but he always seems to get the love. And we can't even use the stripper excuse. We're not in Vegas. As far as I know, he's not a pole dancer. So I don't know why, but he does always get the rub on close fights when it goes to the judges. He's got very good balance. He's got a very good get-up game. He's got extremely fast hands, and I think that's that size discrepancy, right? Him being a little bit smaller, him being a natural 135, or if he chose to cut the weight, he's quicker than these guys at 145 pounds, and he really makes that work for him. The problem here, I think the UFC is trying to bury him. This Losene guy, 16-1, 28 years old. This is his UFC debut. He was supposed to debut a month or two ago, and he was supposed to fight Pitbull in his first fight, Liam. And the UFC is very well known for being mean and dirty to older fighters and just using them to buff up resumes and stuff like that. So Pitbull gets signed to the UFC. He's talking about title shot aspirations, etc. And they go, no. You're fighting this absolute monster kid that we've got coming up. And very intelligently, when Losene missed weight, Pitbull was like, I'm out, bro. He did not take the fight. And I am all for fighters' rights. He is well within his right to do that. He probably saved several brain cells, but he dodged the bullet that the UFC had locked and loaded for him. I think they're trying again, you guys. This guy is light on his feet. He keeps his hands high and tight to his chin. He's got those blitz attacks. He's got a big right cross. Everything this guy lands is heavy. He rips the body. When he gets in tight on you and backs you up to the fence, he flurries with hooks. I love the way this guy strikes. He's got a beautiful pull to set up his right hand. He's got 10 wins by knockout. It feels like this is the stud the UFC has been looking for from Cage Warriors, right? And they tried to get him a Pitbull win in his UFC debut. That didn't work. So every single card, you guys, every time we go on the road, there's one guy. There's one guy from the home team that the UFC is willing to just pop to in the head and drag out back and bury in their own backyard. Liam, I think that's Nathaniel Wood this week. I really think the UFC is trying to do Nathaniel Wood dirty on his home soil and get the Black Panther a massive win in his first fight. Now, the odds are a bit of a problem again, though, because we're buying on the hype of this kid. We've never actually seen him compete at the UFC level. He's minus 220. Nathaniel Wood is the plus 180 underdog. And I would say if Losene doesn't get it done in round 1, boys and girls, be ready, be locked and loaded, pull that trigger. Because if Losene doesn't knock Nathaniel Wood out, it could be split decision season, and Nathaniel Wood refuses to go away. So I will be watching very closely for a live bet. But pre-flop, the call, I think, Liam, is that Losene is going to knock Nathaniel Wood out. He's a big 145er taking on a small 145er or a guy who could cut to 135. I don't know that Losene could cut to 35 and survive the process. So I think he's going to kill him.
Yeah, and you just can't get hurt every fight. You know, I think Nathaniel Wood, like, aesthetically, beautiful fighting. Like, the guy does a lot of things well. He does a lot of things that are pretty. He does a lot of things that look good. And, you know, he can be an effective fighter as well. You know, he can hurt people. He can land good shots. But what is he not very good at? Finishing fights. You know, like Nathaniel Wood just not been a fight finisher at the UFC level. So when you have to hang out for 15 minutes with dangerous guys, that's a long time out there, you know, like 25 minutes, that's an eternity. but 15 minutes is a long time with a dangerous guy. And, the downside, I think, for, Losene, Keita coming into this fight is, I do worry about, he's been off for a while, right? I don't think he's fought since 2024. Does it take him a little bit of time to get that feel back, to kind of get loose, to get going in there? That's the worry for me. I do think that when you look at Nathaniel Wood, he's a very sound fighter, but he's getting hurt multiple times in multiple fights, over a long stretch of time, from the time he was a bantamweight up to this featherweight division. I think if there was a 140-pound division, Nathaniel Wood would drop down, right? Like, I think he could comfortably make that. I think 35, those last 5 pounds, it takes too much out of him. He can hardly do it. Then he can't recover properly. So, he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. A lot of fighters are, right?
He's
managing
the Kelvin
your body
Gastelum of
weight
145 pounds.
Yeah, man. And just the frame is everything. I think the difference is, like, Nathaniel Wood seems to me like a very disciplined guy who shows up in shape every time, who does the lifting and the work and everything else. The problem is, he's just stuck between weight classes. Kelvin Gastelum's just a fat bastard. I say this with love and respect, right? Like, Kelvin Gastelum wrestled at a high level, like, clearly could have the weight discipline and whatever. He just doesn't do it. Like, he's just like, I'm just not going to be about that. Like, that's just not me, And everybody's got a different life, Like, some people want to just enjoy life and, like, eat some food and, like, not be psychotic about weight management for 20 years and do a career. Like, God bless, to each their own, right? But I just think Keita on the other side, like, every calorie will have to be counted properly for 6 weeks to make him 145 pounds on the scale. And that's the difference here. I think the other difference is, we talk about the recoverability. I just think it's going to be harder to hurt, Keita in this fight, for Nathaniel Wood. Like, could he do it with a high kick, with something sneaky that he never saw coming? Like, that's the way I think Nathaniel Wood could hurt him. I think Keita can hurt him by accident. He punches him with a jab, and Nathaniel's just looking like a really bad response. And for me, that's the difference maker here. It's just raw, pure athleticism. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Keita, but I will watch a little bit more tape, make sure there's nothing sus in the grappling that I'm forgetting about, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought he was going to knock out Pitbull, and Pitbull is a very good fighter, right? He's very sound. I just thought that it was a disaster in terms of the athleticism, the style matchup, the age, everything like that.
You're not getting one over on the Wiley vet, Liam. He's not ready to take his death sentence. He said no thank you that day. Oh, thank God. Thank God the scale blinked, because Pitbull was ready to. I'm with you. I think Keita is the real deal. I think his athleticism is going to be the difference. I will be looking at the KO prop. I will be looking at the round 1 prop, but I don't want the money line, Liam. This is one where last week, I was talking about my boy Elijah Smith, and while I predicted that he was going to win inside the distance, I wanted the money line just in case. I wanted the money line in case it extended, in case he wasn't able to find that sub on jiu-jitsu, in case he got tired and it went to decision. This is the opposite. I am not expecting him to win this fight by decision. If he's winning this fight, I'm like 90% sure he's knocking this dude out. I have a hard time seeing him beat this particular opponent over 15 minutes. If it goes the decision, I think the bar heavily swings in the favor of Nathaniel Wood. So I will be doing the opposite on this one. Might have some KO, might have some round 1. Probably not a ton of investment because Nathaniel Wood has hurt me in the past, and he paid me back just a little bit last time. But everybody be careful. Watch your live bets, and we'll see how this one plays out. Next up, we have got Mason Jones taking on Axel Sola. Mason Jones, one of the weirdest fighters that I just can't seem to get a vibe on, Liam. He kind of reminds me, in some respects, a little bit like Nathaniel Wood in that last fight. I have simply never believed in this guy. He made it to the UFC after a long stint in Cage Warriors. He was a super hyped up prospect, and I faded the shit out of him, right? But I pushed all my chips in the middle when he fought Ludovic Klein. And that felt bad, Liam. That felt really bad. Because I faded him with Mike Davis. I actually think I might have faded him with Alan Patrick. I can't recall. I'm going to have to go back and check. That was 2021. So I'm not sure if I pulled the trigger there or not. But I did fade him with David Onama. And then I was like, you know what? I think he's better than I've been giving him credit for. I will believe him here. against Klein, because I didn't think Klein was all that good. I'll be honest with you. And losing that one really hurt me. So I've got kind of a vengeance that I need to extract here on Mason Jones. He goes back to Cage Warriors, which props to the kid, right? Like, everyone could mock and make fun of him for taking that step down, but I think that's super intelligent. Go get paid, get some more experience, learn up, get some skills, and then assault the UFC when you're truly ready to do so. He goes back to Cage Warriors. He gets 4 wins in a row and then says, you know what? All right, I think I'm good. Now the UFC has rolled out the red carpet for him on his way back. They gave him Jeremy Stevens, a 145er, in a big spot. I think Jeremy came in on short notice that night too. And, you know, everything is in your corner to win that fight. But what Mason Jones does, the giant red flag about this guy, is very much like Nathaniel Wood. He must get punched in the mouth before the fight really starts. He's an incredible grappler with really great pace, really good pressure, never stops, relentless with his takedowns. But he wants to strike, Liam. For God knows what reason, the kid wants to strike. And he gets out there and gets in your face and gets wild, and he's not very defensively sound, and he gets cracked. And then he goes, oh shit, I need to grapple now. So in cases like Klein, if you've got a guy who can sprawl and brawl on you once you've gotten tired and a little bit hurt, you just end up losing that fight because you were stupid and you did not follow the game plan, right? And against Jeremy Stevens, who's an old fat 155er at this point in his career, who's ready to hang the gloves up, has been fighting bare knuckle with no grappling for the last 3 years of his career. Yeah, you're going to be able to bail yourself out against that guy. So, but I've seen every single red flag that I had about Mason Jones before he left the UFC is all still there. He's 30 years old. He's got more experience. He's still just as dangerous as he was. The striking does look a little bit better, but the mental problems are still the same. The mental hurdles are still the issue. The game plan is still the same thing. Come out and strike, grapple if I get hurt. So I'm always looking to be on the other side of this guy. His opponent is Axel Sola. 11-0-1, 28 years old. He's making his UFC debut from Aries FC. He was the lightweight champion, defended the title, I believe, 4 times there. And in his UFC debut, it's his second fight. In his UFC debut, he knocked out Rhys McKee, which he pulled the Uno reverse card on Rhys McKee, right? Rhys is usually the guy who takes the beating early and then turns the tables deep in the fight. This guy knocked Rhys McKee out in the 3rd round of the fight. So extremely impressive that he was able to do that, because not many people can put Rhys down. Not many people can out cardio Rhys. So just kind of nail in the coffin. Really impressive performance, in my opinion, for him to get that finish deep in the fight like that. He's another one of these karate stance guys, right? Explosive in and out, lots of feints, standing very upright, good movement in and out, but not a whole lot side to side, this guy. He does have a very nice lead hand, and he just stuffs that jab in your face pretty much constantly. And he likes to attack with that rear leg kick, but I've seen that kind of leave him open. He's been hit before. He doesn't move his head a whole lot, so he's been cracked. I worry a little bit about this guy, but he does a good job of breaking your rhythm, mixing in takedowns, things like that. And he's got a 23-fight amateur career, Liam. So one of these guys who we can go, oh, damn, like he's got way more experience in his back pocket than most of his opponents because he had a long amateur career. This is another very close line, a pick'em style fight. Mason Jones was a -125 favorite, +105 Axel Sola. This line is still crashing. It looks like Sola is taking money in this spot. And I kind of want to be there. My soul calls to an Axel Sola play here, Liam, but that's mostly because of my bias against Mason Jones. I don't know if Axel can handle the grappling of Mason. I do think Axel can knock Mason out. And I do think the footwork might give Mason Jones problems. But what I don't know is if Axel gets put on his back, if he's going to be able to fight up from that position and then do it with regularity. Because I have seen Mason Jones chain grapple when he needs to stay on top of somebody. I don't know that I've seen Axel defending chain grappling to the point that I think he needs to. But he does have a lot of offensive grappling himself. He's got a lot of finishes from like top positions. So I think he's a decent grappler in his own right. This might be the one. I don't want to lose any more money trying to fade Mason Jones because of my vendetta, but I also want to be there. I want to be there when Mason Jones takes that next L, because it's coming, Liam. It is coming. Are we shipping it on Axel Sola this week? Am I seeing this clearly, or do I just have hate goggles on for Mason Jones? Talk to me, buddy.
Man, the only time I faded Mason Jones was with Mike Davis there. I was just pretty sure that Mike Davis was going to be able to out-horse him physically, especially at the time. And, if they reran that fight today, I'm not sure how it would go, honestly. I think maybe you'd still favor Mike, but Mike has kind of looked a little bit sus in the fight since, with all due respect. So the thing about Mason Jones, to your point, man, I've described him as he's a walking bad knockout loss waiting to happen. The guy is clearly quite durable and very tough, but he gets hurt and he's willing to test himself and put himself in the fire. And I just think that's not how you should fight, right? You should try to minimize your risk and maximize your advantages. And I do think that the guy has pretty high level grappling background, he could go out there and try and execute that game plan. And if he's got the cardio basis, it looks like, to push that, right? To go out there and really try to do that. So I think that for Mason Jones, the guy is his own worst enemy, right? Because he wants to have fun and put on these crazy fights, but he didn't have easy matchmaking. I'd say he's fought the much tougher schedule, especially, in the UFC, his brand of competition compared to what Axel Sola fought. With all due respect to my Irish brother, Reese McKee, somebody that I personally root for, and I listened to his heartfelt interview on the Big News Paul Hughes podcast, so y'all should check that out as well. Reese McKee's the man. But the truth about Reese McKee is also that just he's a guy that is not all that athletically gifted, that just made the most of his career. And even still, he had some moments in that fight. It was just that Axel Sola hits harder and is a little bit more athletic, stuck with it the whole time. And Reese McKee eventually fell over, and he had a lot of fights where he took a ton of damage, and eventually he can't do that anymore. And, the difference, I think, is just Mason Jones has a lot more baseline skills in all different positions, right? He's got much more of an ability to take the fight to the ground, to mix it up there. Whereas McKee is much more resigned to just trying to hold on to you in the clinch and making it ugly there. He doesn't really have that same kind of grappling game proactively. So I just feel like there's a lot more that Mason Jones has to offer in terms of a mixed skill set here. Whereas I feel like Axel Sola, he definitely has a chance to knock him out, but it's hard to knock him out. And I feel like the crowd's going to be eating out of Mason Jones' palm. And I do just think, when you got to cut that weight and come back down to 155 and somebody decides to make you wrestle and grapple, then we're going to find out some questions about how your cardio holds up in that kind of setting in front of a big crowd in a big fight feel. And I thought he was slowing down against Reese McKee. He just landed a big shot and killed him anyway. So hats off to him, right? He did his job. Nothing to say bad about him there. But I felt like Reese McKee slowed down because of the damage. And I just think Mason Jones is probably going to be able to, push it. So I saw minus 120 Mason Jones, and I was like, man, if I click this, I'm probably going to live to regret it. But I definitely considered it. So, yeah, man, I do feel like in this case, a rare favorite or pass for me at the current price, right? When we're talking about minus 150 or something, then I'm at the point where I don't need to get involved in this kind of fight. But just if you said to me, Liam, pick who wins, I would pick Mason Jones. So at minus 120, I think he wins the fight.
Okay. Yeah, I think that that makes a lot of sense to me, man. I'm probably going to avoid this fight like the plague, because Sola's going to be calling my name all week. He's just gonna. Don't be shocked, you guys. I'm calling it right now on Friday when I do the weigh-in show. I'm going to find a reason to think Sola looked big and in shape and be like, I'm going, guys. I'm going. I know myself.
He's in the best shape of his life.
Yeah, I'm absolutely going to pull that shit, Liam. I know it's coming right now. I'm this close and I'm hanging on, trying not to make an impulsive bet. And if I get one whiff, one interview, if Mason Joe is like, bro, I stubbed my toe last week, I'm like, fuck it, bet Axel Sola, let's go.
Take my money.
Shout out to Spectation Sports, you guys, the new home of the LFA prelims. If you guys are not signed up for Spectation Sports, what are you waiting for? They're expanding. We've got fights every single weekend. Ignite fights this weekend. Aries fight series. Sorry, not FC. Aries fight series next week. Like every single weekend, week out, you have got fights on Spectation Sports. What are you waiting for? These guys are going to be on Dana White's Contender Series. They've got a relationship going with LFA now. It is up from here. There's going to be more and more action on this platform. Use promo code DIEHARD when you get signed up for 20% off. That link is in the description below. And we are back talking UFC London. I am joined by Liam Picks Fights. Do me a favor and hit that like button. Get subscribed if you haven't to the channel. And make sure you're supporting Liam as well, because he does awesome content throughout the week with fights and gambling and betting. Also, let's get into our next fight of the night. We have got Kurtis Campbell, and he's taking on Danny Silva. Another very intriguing fight to me here, Liam. And so far, I've said that I think on every single fight this entire card. You guys know I'm a hardcore. The reason for this being called the Die Hard MMA podcast is because we go long. We're long-winded. We want to talk about, the crummy women's MMA fights at the beginning of the card. We're not going to skip those because we are diehards, right? So all of these are very intriguing to me. But I really feel like almost every single card or almost every single fight on this card is super interesting matchups, fighters with question marks, people we're not super familiar with. So when I say that, I don't mean to say it just blanketly. I actually mean I'm interested in this. So Danny Silva, 10-2, 29 years old, 2-1 start to his UFC career. His last loss was against Kevin Vallejos. We just saw what Kevin Vallejos can do. Dude's a monster. So there's really no skin off your back in that one. Back-to-back split decision wins over guys like Joshua Kalibau and Lucas Almeida. He is managed by Cub Swanson. He's got a couple of wins over decent names in the UFC organization. Josh Kalibau, a guy I wish was still on the roster. I really respect him. And even his losses, like the split to Danny Silva, were tough fought ones. He was very entertaining. I don't know why they cut him. Silva's got really fast hands. He tagged Josh early in that fight and had him wrapped up in a guillotine, Liam, and that was deep, but you and I both know that nobody taps Joshua Kalibau. It's just not a thing that happens. So he didn't end up getting it, but it was impressive that he was able to jump on the club and sub the way that he did. He's super nasty in the clinch. Everything he throws is in combos, big knees, big elbows. Seems like he hits pretty hard. He'll double up on the jab. I like the way he moves. I like the way he strikes. 6.6 significant strikes per minute. Very active, very offensive. Now, his opponent is a UFC newcomer, 8-0, 23 years old, debuting off of Dana White's Contender Series, the Pink Panther himself.
Like to buy a hamburger?
I would like to buy a hamburger.
Liam, this guy looks like a nerd, but he's an absolute psychopath. I mean, the kind of guy who likes the taste of his own blood, right? You've seen pictures of him. He's dripping in sweat. He's cut up. He's got blood dripping out of his mouth. And then he just looks at you and he smiles. Like, this guy is nuts. He's a cross between Jordan Leavitt and Paddy Pimblett, right? Like, you look at him, looks a little gay. Right? But he's got the same style as Paddy with like the long, lanky body and the wicked grappling and the ground and pound. He's got the quick back takes. He does his hair up in like a little top pony, like not epic Yuri Prochazka style, like awesome. It's like right on top of his head. It's like a little tuft. It looks like something from a Dr. Seuss book. He's really creative with his striking. He is dangerous the second he gets his hands on you. His clinch is nasty. And I know I've said that before, but guys, it's like next level with this guy. And he does a really good job of like tipping you and tilting you off balance. As soon as you're off balance, he dumps you to the mat. His ground and pound is vicious. And again, the back takes, the submissions. This guy looks for damage in every opportunity that he gets. And I want to touch on the AMI record again. He's another guy who's got an 8-1 amateur record. So at 8-0, you'd be like, is he really there? Is he seasoned well enough? Can we trust him in the UFC? Guys, he's got 9 additional fights leading up to his professional MMA run. So he's got a decent level of experience as well. And you look back at his resume and it doesn't look like they bubble wrapped him, Liam. decent level of competition. I know records aren't everything, but he's not fighting 0-7 guys 3 fights in a row to make it to the UFC. So I really like what I see from this kid. I am a Pink Panther fan, guys. I like him in this spot, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to have some action on him. Danny Silva, for as much as I do like him, he's fighting close at best with guys. I think Kurtis Campbell at 23 years old is going to be another potential Paddy Pimblett style super stud, where it looks rough at the beginning. Maybe they protect him a little bit. Maybe people don't believe in him. Maybe it's like Jordan Leavitt, where people think he's gay and so they want to root against him, and I get better lines because of it. That would be great. I think he's going to be really freaking good, Liam. I like this kid a lot.
Yeah, man, I'm a big Kurtis Campbell guy. The way I would describe it is like I'm a Danny Silva respecter, but I am a Kurtis Campbell believer. And I just think that right now he's got a higher ceiling. And I think when you look at his game, he does things that most guys don't do, which is why I like it. Like a lot of guys fall into the MMA meta. They do the things that work for everybody. But the things that keep us interested in the sport are the Rene de Ritters or the Duplessis, or even these guys that just come around with a style that's a little bit different. Even a Joshua Van, a guy who just picks up the pace and hustles with the striking. Piotr Jan does it his own way. A craftsman, right? Doesn't really finish guys, but everybody loves to watch him fight because he does it with lethal intent. And he's mean, right? Like every guy just kind of brings their own style and craft to it. And I think that when you look at a fight like this, Kurtis Campbell is a guy that brings that awkwardness. And like when a lot of guys bring a grappling heavy style, they get criticized because it's really boring, right? And you and I are both grapplers, right? But we can also acknowledge that we come to watch fights, right? Like we can watch UFC BJJ when we want to go watch somebody grapple. We could go watch a Polaris, an ADCC, or one of these things. That's where grappling matches should take place. But a fight is a fight, and there's a little bit of a difference, right? You should be looking at least to do some damage to your opponent. And that's what the Pink Panther does. Like he will be riding on top with a wrestling ride and just knee you as hard as he can in the body. And then when you go to roll, he grabs your wrist and punches you in the face. He just keeps everything very aggressive in all positions. And he's also willing to flow, right? He doesn't need to be the hammer at all times. There can be times when you start to have some offense on him, it doesn't discourage him. He still is willing to get into that fight. So for me, Danny Silva is the kind of guy that could bring you a fight, and I think he's going to do that. I think he's going to bring Kurtis a fight here. But I just think Kurtis is the guy with more finishing upside. I think he's the more dangerous guy. I think the crowd's going to be behind him. And I think he's a better wrestler and grappler. So for those reasons, I'm going to go with Kurtis Campbell to get the win here. I think that when you look at the guys, if Danny Silva gets a chance to go toe-to-toe with you 15 minutes standing up on the feet, he's going to land his shots. He's going to make his mark. But I think he's going to be grounded in this fight. I think Kurtis Campbell will get opportunities on top. And I do think that is the danger factor for Danny Silva getting finished. It's like, it doesn't really matter how tough you are if somebody's beating the shit out of you with elbows or they're in positions that you can't defend. So I do think Kurtis Campbell on the feet, he's got his work cut out for him. On the ground, I just think this kid's got some really special skills.
I agree with you. I'm glad we're on the same page on this one. It is absolutely favorite or pass. I'm going to do the ever dangerous 2-leg parlay, and I will have Kurtis Campbell in as one of those legs here for me. Danny Silva gives me Hurricane Shane vibes, Liam. Shane Burgos a little bit, right? Little sprinkle.
First of all, I got to say, the pride is Section 9. You shitting me, dude? Hurricane Shane, the pride is Section 9 New York. Stand up.
I know he's your boy. I used to love Shane Burgos, man. I was so high on that dude. His war with Josh Emmett, one of the most legendary fights of all time. Danny Silva just kind of reminds me of him with the volume, with the pace, with the constant bite down on the mouthpiece. But again, that's the kind of thing where we saw what happened, right? Eventually that bill comes due and Edson Barboza shut his brain off, and he didn't realize it was anime style. He didn't realize he was knocked out. His body fell over before he was unconscious. That's the kind of thing where I think Danny's headed down that path. He's going to be really good. He's going to be really entertaining. He's going to be really fun. But at a certain point, I do think he's going to be out hustled by some of these other guys. He's going to be out skilled by some of these guys. We'll see. Campbell on the mat, I think big advantage. So glad we are lining up there. FightingStats.com says it's a trap, man. Why? Now you've got my interest. Tell me why, Fighting Stats. Why is it a trap? And Liam Dixon wants to know what you're sipping on over there. What's the drink of choice this evening?
Oh, I got a little bit of the Arizona iced tea.
There you go.
Half and half. Absolutely fantastic. Cheers to the chat. God bless you.
99 cents a can. Never looking back. Gotta love Arizona iced tea. Let's freaking go. All right, everybody. Man. While we wait for a response from our friends fightingstats.com on why this is a trap, let's start breaking down the next fight. We've got some bigger boys here. Roman Dolidze, Mr. Steal Your Girl, Mr. You Want Me to Submit Him, is taking on Christian Leroy Duncan, the man known as CLD. And this is in his backyard, you guys. Make no mistake. CLD, the local flavor here for UFC London. Roman Dolidze, one of our Georgian warriors who we love, 15-4, 37 years old out of Extreme Couture. This guy is getting a little bit up there at this point, and he is coming off getting his shit ripped by Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. The big thing I've always said about Dolidze, Liam, is he needs to control the pace, right? If he's the one in the driver's seat, he looks pretty good. He's got nasty power on the feet. And even if you go 2-1 volume on him, he'll look to land that big power shot that catches the eye a little bit more. And he might be able to swing rounds that way. Grappling, this man can grapple. He's a BJJ black belt, and he's tied people into pretzels before. What he did back in the day to Jack Hermanson, where he was able to catch his knee in like a knee slicer situation and then pound him out from back mount position where Jack just had nowhere to go. Like, he's really creative on the mat. He's very physically strong. This dude is a force, but he's slow. He's clunky. If you can see the shots coming, you can avoid them. His wins are over, I hate to say it, but the shell of Marvin Vittori, Kevin Holland, who should be fighting at 170 pounds, and the shell of Anthony Smith. Like, those are the guys he's beating at this point in his career, Liam. So there's not a whole lot to write home about. He's firmly outside the contender circle. His skill set is dangerous, but he is a litmus test. He is a gatekeeper at this point in his career. Can you avoid the big shot, or will you look like Phil Hawes eating a knee to the side of your head? That is the question mark for this guy. Will you engage in the grappling? Can you get on top of him and stay safe like Fluffy did? Or are you going to fall victim to this guy's wiles when he gets you on the mat, because he is a little bit sneaky down there? Christian Leroy Duncan, 13. I don't know why. I looked at that 3 and my brain still said 11. 13-2. He's 30 years old, and he's on a 3-fight win streak. Coming off of back-to-back knockout wins over Eric Anders and Marco Tulio. Not the craziest wins in the world, definitely respectable wins. He's a guy they had to hit the reset button on, Liam. Very highly touted prospect, good footwork, really big for the weight class, very long, likes to strike, liked the guy a lot. But coming out of Cage Warriors, he just wasn't quite ready. Ran into Armin Petrosian, took an L in that spot in a closely contested fight, just got kind of handled by Gregory Rodriguez, wasn't ready for the physicality. They've hit the reset button on this dude twice, sent him back down the rankings and said, all right, let's try this again. Like, they really like him because they're not throwing him to the wolves when he takes that L, Liam. You can see when the UFC really likes somebody, because if you take one L, some of these guys, they're like, oh, great, now you're getting a step up in competition regardless of the loss. We're going to use you as cannon fodder against guys who we need to get closer to the contender range, right? Not this kid. They're going, oh, you took a loss? I'm so sorry. Let's put Dennis Tululian in there. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's give you Claudio Ribeiro. Like, they want him to succeed, all right? And I think he's getting to the point where he's kind of turned a bit of a corner. In this fight, he really needs to stick and move. He needs to jab. He needs to pop Roman Dolidze at range. He needs to avoid the power coming back at him. I think Roman is a lesser version of Gregory Rodriguez, right? Same kind of fighter, same test that they gave him. But Hobocop is far more aggressive. Hobocop has cardio and will not stop coming forward and throwing nuclear missiles at your head. Whereas Dolidze needs to slow down and take a breath for a second. He'll give you a minute. He'll give you a bit of a break for a second. So I do think that CLD is in a good spot in this fight. I do think this is his fight to lose. The price tag worries me just a little bit, considering he has failed to step up in competition not once, but twice. Minus 425, plus 330 the comeback on Roman Dolidze. but I do think this is two fighters going separate directions. I think Roman Dolidze is on the back end of his career. I think he's downtrending at this point. And Christian Leroy Duncan, they are trying to position as a future contender. So if you're doing anything, in my opinion, it's CLD.
Yeah, man, I'm going to largely agree with you. The thing that I will just put out there is I remember last time out, I made the case for why I thought actually, no, it's 2 fights ago now. I made the case for why I thought you should bet Eric Anders by like basically to get a takedown in that fight with CLD. I was like, even if he gets knocked out, like I think he could get a takedown before he does. And he literally takes him down, gets back up, and instantly gets knocked out. I was like, Eric Anders, you're a loyal soldier. Thank you, sir. Did exactly what his job was, nothing more. And when you look at a fight like this, Gregory Rodriguez, he gets 4 takedowns in that fight, right? He has not taken a single guy down in the UFC in his 4 fights since, right? Like he knew the assignment against CLD, and he's like, dude, if I go out there and wrestle this guy, there's nothing he could do. And that's all he did. He just wrestled him. And it was honestly kind of a listless performance I felt from CLD, with all due respect, in that one. And that's the thing that for me makes me like, could Dolidze do this? Like, I remember back to the Laureano Staropoli fight, and I just want to acknowledge, like, because if this is the last fight for Dolidze, this will be the last time I have an opportunity to say this, right? It could just be like, hey, this guy's shot. He's getting up there in age. Like, I certainly think that's possible. He did not look good in his last couple fights. But he beats Marvin Vettori. He beats Kevin Holland, finished him in the first round, took him down. Anthony Smith, he took him down up at 205, right? And the Vettori fight, he basically just has Vittori's number on the feet. He beat him up both times that they fought, in my opinion, right? So then it's just like, okay, then he loses to Fluffy. Like, Fluffy was just a huge favorite over Sean Strickland, a former champion, right? Like, everybody agreed Fluffy's a damn good fighter. So he got embarrassed in that one. And we've seen, like, Michel Pereira, it took him some time to get back on the horse, right? Like, maybe Dolidze, it'll take the same kind of thing. But Dolidze, in my opinion, has always been a guy who keeps things in perspective, who understands his game. And then on the other side, like, everybody's told me since he arrived in the UFC, this guy sucks. Like, I just remember everybody, every fight being like, Roman Dolidze sucks. Like, this guy's terrible. He looks like shit every time he fights. And I was like, dude, all the guy does is win, though. Like, I bet him 2 units against John Alon, minus 200. Cash it. I bet him minus 145 against Laureano Staropoli. Hilarious. I bet 0.75 units plus 135 against Kevin Holland. 1.25 units plus 135 against Marvin Vettori. I bet him small against Anthony Hernandez. He looked like shit. So, like, straight up, I got to say, like, yeah, my read was definitely wrong there. And I had been cashing on him all the way up. So, I was willing to take the shot there at a big plus number. And it looked even bigger, right? Like, it looked like plus 1,000, right? So, okay, bad bet there. But all of that's to say, like, I just had always thought, like, higher of Dolidze than the market. I was like, this guy's dangerous because he could break somebody's face, right? Like, Doc is about to fight at the White House. Brother got his face smashed into pieces by Dolidze, right? You look at Kevin Holland, known for being super tough, super durable. He got injured to his rib in the first round of getting roughhoused by Dolidze on the ground. Like, you look at Jack Hermanson, not easy to out-grapple a guy like Jack Hermanson. He summarily out-grappled Jack Hermanson to the point where he got a TKO from a submission position. It's just like, he's a special guy at times, right? Even the Phil Hawes fight, like, he knocked Phil Hawes dead cold and he also submitted him in the same round. So just like, he's a pick your poison type of guy. But I do think he's a little bit old and washed. So at plus 350, it's one of those ones where you're like, man, if he could get 3 takedowns, he could win this fight. Like, I am quite confident in that, because once he gets on top of guys, they don't normally make a habit of getting back up. Like, he's heavy on top. He's pretty content to camp in the guard there. But also, like, if he gets you into a grappling exchange, the fight could be over shortly thereafter. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's just Absolutely. One of those guys where one mistake on the mat with Dolidze and, like, you could just have a completely destroyed knee. And that's the thing for me where, CLD, more dangerous guy. I'd be looking at the Dolidze takedown props here because, again, like, if Eric Anders can take you down, Eric's a big, strong guy. So is Dolidze. And Dolidze is probably a better wrestler in terms of technique. So,
you know what? All fair points, Liam. All very, very fair points. I think that's enough of a cautionary tale to keep me away from CLD in this spot, because I've seen it with my own two eyes. When you see someone shit the bed more than once, it definitely time makes you forget, right? Like I want to think maybe he's improved and recovered
The
and gotten
Tulio win was
better.
special. The Tulio win was special.
That was pretty good for sure. But okay, I'll pump the brakes a little bit after hearing some of those thoughts. I do worry about Dolidze getting a little long in the tooth at this point, though. We'll see what happens. Rewinding a little bit here, Fighting Stats says Danny won't let Campbell stay at kicking range in the pocket with boxing and pressure. Campbell's wrestling is good, but his top control is not. Danny will get up. So I will say, Fighting Stats, I actually don't think he needs to stay at kicking range. The Panther's nasty in the clinch. I think if he crashes in near boxing range and he gets his mitts on him, that's just fine for Campbell. I don't think that's going to be an issue. So I guess we'll just agree to disagree on that one. I'm not so sure that it's a trap, as you say. But we'll see. Good luck to you. I'm never going to try and talk anybody off an underdog play. That's how you make money in MMA is finding the underdogs that are mispriced. Absolutely. And Robert's saying that's what we said about Brad Tavares too, Clint. Back to the fight we were just talking about. Yes, it is, my friend. And I will say, I broke it down at the beginning of the show. I will never understand why Brad Tavares jumped on the back of Eric Anders. All he had to do was say, you know what? Come on back to the feet, buddy. He dropped him in round 2. He had him hurt. That was it. That was the moment. That was all we needed. Anders was getting tired. Anders was getting beat up on the feet. He decided to grapple for God knows what reason, and it ruined us. He didn't follow the game plan. So he had it in the bag, and he fucked us. So I know that's what I said, and that's why you got to count on these guys to make good decisions fighting, and that does not always happen. Shout out my man, Nonstop Philly. Thank you very much for the donation, my friend. Says Clint, Liam is an elite level guest. I agree with you. For the record, question of the week: have you ever looked at fighter props like significant strikes landed, etc.? Love the content always. Thank you very much, Nonstop Philly. I do appreciate you. Yes, I have looked at those. I am not a super savant when it comes to those types of things. They usually release later in the week, right? They're not early in the week, so we can't talk about them on this show. If there's anything that catches my attention, I try to talk about it on the Friday show, but it's not normally something that we do. But thank you for teeing me up. I actually do a props show, you guys. Clint's Hot Props every single week, usually comes out on Thursday or Friday, and I'll talk about my favorite props on the board with my numbers and stuff like that on those. Just quick hits, trying to find an alternative way to make you some cash that way. But when it comes to the significant strike numbers, talk to the math guys, right? Mr. Electrocute, Wheezy, our other guests that come on the show, those are the guys who hit those numbers. I'm not good enough crunching the numbers to know. Right? I'll play the fight out in my head. Takedowns every once in a while, I'll take a shot at. But my most recent takedown attempts, you guys, I tried to ladder twice. Like the 1 takedown, 2+ takedowns, 3+ takedowns. I whiffed on both of them. So I kind of put that one back on the shelf. I gave it a shot. I'm not that great at it. So I'm still playing around with those props. The one thing I have been playing with a bit more is the spreads, the judge spread bets. Those are kind of doing a little bit okay for me. Liam, have you ever played with like the takedown props or the significant strike props yourself?
A little bit. The takedown props more so, just because I feel like, I could get a better read for those. Whereas the striking props, like my brain is trained to think, in a contrarian way. And when you think in a contrarian way, trying to predict like over-unders on strike totals is hard, right? Because I always envision like, well, somebody could get finished. And, these kind of things, they kind of put you off of expectations. So, everybody's got different skills suited to different styles. And for me, I don't think the significant strike props is my edge. So I stay away from those. But takedown props, submission props, things like that, things more correlated with grappling outcomes, I think I'm a lot better at predicting.
I'm kind of there with you on that a little bit. I think you need to know the numbers to do the strike props. Otherwise, you're just kind of you're flying blind a little bit if you don't know the stats for those ones. Let's move it along, you guys. Next up, we have got Iwo Bara. Oh, geez, I messed it up again. Baraniewski. Baraniewski. I don't know. I should have done better. He's already had a fight in the UFC. I am ashamed of my pronunciation on this guy, but I do like to just stick with Iwo. That's a fun name to roll off the tongue. He's taking on Austin Lane this week. Let me just take you guys back in the time machine for a minute and remind you what Iwo's UFC debut looked like. Dude, a 2-minute classic, you guys. The bell rang and those two men charged at each other and just started throwing non-stop hammers. That was one of the most fun fights we have ever seen. And seriously, it did not go very long. Iwo managed to land the kill shot. He is 7-0 at 27 years old, 100% finish rate, 100% finish rate in the first round. Now, I firmly believe that Ibo Aslan has been fraud checked. He's not UFC caliber. He had a good start to his run in the UFC, but he's rattled off 3 losses essentially since. I always felt like he was a bit of a meme fighter, and watching that, he very well could have got back on track. He almost had Iwo out of there, but this kid's chin checks out. The durability, my friend. You do not want to go chin for chin with this kid, Iwo, because he is nasty. He can grapple pretty well as well. He's got some armbar finishes early on in his career. He's got an extremely deep amateur career as well. So another one of these guys where the 7-0 doesn't quite cut it. He's got way more fighting experience than a lot of people he's going to be in the cage with. I like Rudy, and the fight name is perfect. Austin Lane, 13-7, 38 years old. This is cannon fodder, Liam. This guy does not belong in the UFC. They are using him to buff up a couple resumes. He is 1-4 in his last 5 fights. This guy somehow, like, he was supposed to be the way Robelis de Spain kept his UFC run going. And Robelis is so bad at grappling that even Austin Lane was able to take him down and win a decision that night. He should, by all means, be 0-5 and just be cut by the organization. He's been finished in all 4 of his other losses. Toffin knocked him out. Pinto knocked him out. Petrino choked him out. I mean, like, he just can't brawl with these guys. He's really big. He's really long. He's athletic. He's a former football player. But the 2-time CTE career is a real thing because this guy cannot take a punch in the cage. If he lands first, Liam, he definitely has heavyweight power. He can hurt some people, credit where it's due, but he just can't handle the return fire. So he started trying to wrestle people. He started trying to be athletic and physical and take people down. And it worked on Robelis. We kicked that dude's ass off to karate combat. It ain't working on anybody else. So yeah, this is the spot where you're just hoping he doesn't get sparked on the first punch. As long as Iwo doesn't get cracked on the chin in the first 2 seconds of the fight, he should win, and he should smother Austin Lane. Under 1.5 is -300. That's probably better than the money line because I've got a hard time seeing Austin Lane get out of the first round with Iwo. And if he wins, it's absolutely happening in the first round. So I think under 1.5 is better than laying the chalk on Iwo, who is a -575 favorite. Liam, your thoughts?
Yeah, man. My thoughts, in short, are Austin Lane is not a guy that I want to have money on almost ever in almost any reason. You look at Iwo, he's a Polish national champion in judo, jiu-jitsu, and mixed martial arts. And I think that kind of shows, right? What do I mean by that? In his last fight, he was in the fire, right? Like right away, like they're both just swinging crazy, absolute insane 90-second fight. And he recomposed himself when he got hurt. He never stopped being aggressive. He did show some defensive instincts. After he'd get hurt, he'd get back up, put his hands up just long enough to block and then counter and throw back and get respect back. And he dropped his opponent more than he got dropped, right? Like that's the judge of like who won the fight. It's light heavyweight. These guys are landing big shots. Do you have to be defensively responsible? Yes. But the thing that's hilarious to me is that I thought he could have won that fight and looked like a -500 favorite if he went out there to grapple against Iwo. Just because, like, I think Iwo is a very good grappler based on the tape that I had seen pre-UFC. Now, obviously, do we want to see it at the UFC level to know for sure? Absolutely. But I don't think Austin Lane's very good at anything in MMA, period. So do I think he's a big guy that can hit hard? Sure. Do I think he can take down low-level heavyweights that can't wrestle and grapple like, we've talked about before? Absolutely. I bet Waldo to out-wrestle Robelis de Spain. And he came from a baseball and, professional boxing background. So
back in the days when I thought Waldo was ass.
Hey, and dude, it's hilarious because Waldo is one of these guys. People earn respect, right? You might not see it at first, but hey, they go out there and earn respect. If Austin Lane goes out there and wins another fight in the UFC, you might have to start talking about, hey, he's earned some respect, but he's an older gentleman. He's making a hard weight cut. I would just say, like, doesn't sound advisable to me to start making hard weight cuts like this at 38 years of age. Doesn't come from a combat sports background like that. It comes from a football background. So I know football players have some experience losing weight. It's a different ball game, right? So I just think, losing like 40 pounds at 38, that's like a huge lifestyle commitment. And I just don't see it going well. I feel like it's going to not be good for his brain health. And then on top of that, like if Ewo gets hurt here, I feel like he could wrestle, grapple, get this to the ground and look like a big favorite on top. So I think he wins the fight.
Okay. No, I'm with you there, Liam. And I got to tell you, heavyweights and football players do not have experience with cutting weight. Absolutely not. I will tell you, my first ever grappling tournament I ever went to, I overshot the whole weight thing because I hadn't wrestled since I was in junior high school, right? Where you just kind of wrestled what weight you were. I didn't really cut weight back then. So had no idea what I was doing, completely misjudged how to do it, almost killed myself, didn't eat anything for like a day and a half. And then I was in trash bags running laps in the parking lot. I weighed in, I missed, and they were like, bro, you got to cut. So I literally am like duct taping trash bags to myself and I'm jogging in the parking lot before this jiu-jitsu tournament starts. And thank God this poor little local lady just felt bad for me. I was over by like 2 pounds and she was like, yeah, he made it. she straight up let me in and I blew weight by like 2 pounds. It was my first ever jiu-jitsu tournament. And I was like, fuck, I got to learn how to cut weight, man. This is not good.
In wrestling, the number on the scale is law. In jiu-jitsu, it's merely a recommendation. I've gotten to tournaments and they're just like, hey, like you vaguely look like you're about the weight that we said. Like, you're good. Like, I'm like, okay. Like, as a wrestler, I'm like, what? Like, I hope the other guy's vaguely in the weight class, but it's just hilarious, man. It's just a different culture.
Dude, it was one of those things where she could see me coming a mile away. She just watched me jog for 20 minutes before this tournament, watch me limp over and peel every single thing off, and then step on the scale. I'm dead inside staring at her, and she looks at the scale and looks at me, and you just see she had that mom thing going on where she was like, no, honey. You made it.
We can't have you dying out in the parking lot right now.
Basically, she had mercy on me. Oh, good times, good times. I was much better at cutting weight after that, I promise. All right, guys, moving along. One of the feature fights of the evening, Michael Venom Page takes on Sam Patterson. And I want to make one thing exceptionally clear right off the bat here, Liam. This is a Sam Patterson podcast. Okay, we have been on Team Sam Patterson since his second UFC fight. And yes, I said that right, his second, because I was one of those psychopaths dumb enough to bet on Yanel Ashmoz in his UFC debut. I found holes in the game of Sam Patterson that I did not enjoy. Johan Lainez, thankfully, was a big enough bum that I took the stab on Sam Patterson taking a step up in weight, because the issue with Sam has always been, guys, he was a massive human being trying to cut down to 155 pounds. And you could just see every time he got touched by anybody at 155, the concussion that was like developing. He had no blood in his brain whatsoever. There's no water padding up there for this guy. He was cutting weight very well before when he was at 155 pounds. And you could see it was to his detriment. So he moves up to 170. And I said, you know what? I'm going to bank on this kid being able to utilize his full skill set at the right weight class. And I've been right so far in that. Liam, he's on a 4-fight win streak, and he's finished every single one of his opponents. All 4 of those wins have come in round 1. His last fight was the only one that I hesitated on. When he fought Trey Waters, I was like, ooh, like maybe this is one I'm not sure, because I'm not really solid on Trey Waters. But we went with it anyway, and he rewarded me for that. So this is a guy I've got a streak going on. He is a filthy jiu-jitsu player, you guys. Big, tall, really long, nasty submissions. He's a black belt. And then his stand-up is pretty good too. He's chopping with his long-ranged attacks, lots of kicks. He's got power in his hands. And the way he did Danny Barlow.
He's got power too, and he knows it. Oh, he drops him. Right hand now for he sleeps him. Gets the job done. Incredible. Patterson. Sam Patterson.
It's clunky. It's awkward, But when he touches people, they fall over, Liam. He's got serious hands at 170 pounds. I love me some Sam Patterson, and he's been an underdog for the majority of his career. So it's been real easy to just click and ride with my boy. He's been in the RDR and DDP category with just being a physical freak at plus money. And it's been pretty great. Now he's taking on Michael Venom Page, who's 24-3. Now, the guy is 38 years old, but Liam, he's on a 2-fight win streak. He lost a very, very close and contentious fight to Ian Machado Gary a little bit ago, and he's been a little unhappy with the UFC organization. He's been a little vocal about it too, where he's been hoping for lots of activity, and they just refuse to book the guy. In fact, one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, they started refusing to book him at his natural weight class of 170 pounds, Liam. They made this guy go into enemy territory, trying to build a name for Shara Bullet. Remember we talked about that a little bit earlier? The UFC is trying to make something of Shara Bullet. So instead of letting him fight anybody of note at 185, because frankly, he can't beat them, they went, you know what? Let's pull a name up from 170. They tried to sacrifice Michael Venom Page in Abu Dhabi, and it didn't work. He beat Shara's ass. And then they gave him Jared Cannonier. And Jared Cannonier is the number 10 ranked 185er, and Page whooped his ass too. I mean, this dude has still got it. And he's 38 years old, and now they finally said, okay, fine, we'll give you a fight at 170 pounds. So he's going back down to his true normal weight class. The issue that I have had with Michael Page is he can be grappled a little bit. Ian Gary was the one that kind of showed that. Again, it was a very greasy fight though, Liam, because Ian didn't throw a whole lot. He really relied on his grappling. He body triangled him. He took his back. It was control time. And a lot of people cried foul and screamed about that fight. Shouldn't have been rewarded to Ian Gary for winning that way. You know, things like that, because he didn't do anything and he got hit a couple of times. So a lot of people were really upset with that decision. I was grateful to be on the Ian Gary side of things, but I will tell you, I was sweating absolute bullets because in round 3, he was hanging on for dear life and did 0 damage. So I didn't think we were going to get the decision. Thankfully, Ian Gary was the guy the UFC was rooting for. That's what this smells like to me. For whatever reason, he's an aging MMA veteran. And instead of the UFC saying, hey, we got a star here that we can use, they're trying to sacrifice him. You can see it time and time again. They gave the close decision to Ian Gary. They gave him an enemy territory fight at 185. They're only booking him against guys at 185. And now when they do finally give him a 170-pound fight, it's against a potential stud, a rising star, a kid with all these round 1 wins. They're trying to bury this man. It's obvious at this point. Now, what I will say, being the Sam Patterson guy, having gone to war with Sam Patterson every opportunity I've had since his first fight, this line stinks to me, Liam. My first thought was, oh shit, here we go again. You know, I'm ready to click that plus money. We got minus 185 on Michael Venom Page, plus 150 on Sam Patterson. Sam is striking a whole lot more than he's grappling these days, Liam. And I haven't really noticed Michael Page getting hurt a whole lot on the feet. He's still very elusive. He still has very good head movement. He still is very fast, very twitchy, a very intelligent jab, a good right hand. All the striking and the speed still seems to be there. I don't know that Sam Patterson's a really great wrestler. He's a good submission guy, but I don't know how good he is wrestling. So I wonder if he's going to be able to find the success grappling against Michael Page in this fight. And if he doesn't, he's stuck standing. The few times he's been stuck standing, now recently this hasn't been an issue because he's just melting people. But you go back and you watch that Danny Barlow fight. You know, before he clipped him and killed him at the 3-minute mark, Danny was landing anything he wanted, Liam. Sam doesn't move his head. Like, these guys are bums. And Sam is able to walk through what they're throwing at him and then melt them. Guys, do not underestimate the level of competition jump we are talking about right now. Trey Waters is 9-2, and he's 2-1 in the UFC against mid to bottom level competition. He lost on Dana White's Contender Series. Now he's taking on a guy who's got a full career fighting the best in the world outside the UFC, who's beating guys in the top 10 at 185. He's still got it and is now fighting in his natural weight class with a chip on his shoulder. This is a massive jump in competition. Liam, I need your counsel here because I have two wolves inside me right now. One is howling at the moon, foaming at the mouth, ready to go to war with my underdog here. And the other one is pissing down his own leg, scared, because this should be maybe the most obvious click on Michael Page at less than 200 odds there has ever been, because he is a next level striker. I don't know that Sam Patterson is going to have the success striking against a guy like Page as he's had against his last couple of opponents. And I don't know that he's got the wrestling toolbox to have success grappling against Michael Venom Page. Because of that, I am concerned that maybe this is where we leave Sam Patterson out to sea a little bit. Maybe we bet on Michael Page at a very cheap price tag, because I could see the potential chin concerns coming back, eating a couple big shots from a world-class striker. I can see Sam getting hurt again in this spot.
Yeah, man. I had Ian Gary sub plus 1,000 in that fight, and watching that, as you can imagine, made me want to puke in my hands. And
I was right there with you, sick to my stomach.
Absolutely brutal, man. I've had Ian Gary on the back of Shavkat, who, like, name a guy. I had him on their back, and then he doesn't finish the fight. Brutal, right? But when he's
really not training with Charles Oliveira, Liam. I don't believe it for 1 second. He can't figure out how to rear naked choke somebody. I refuse to believe he's actually training with Charles Oliveira.
You'd think at some point you'd figure that out, right? Just every day at pro training. But in any case, you look at, all right, who do we got in this matchup? And I think Sam Patterson is one of these guys that's really offensively potent. You know, just like he's got power in his hands. He's willing to swing. You know, he commits to his offense, and then he's a very dangerous grappler. Like you mentioned, the submissions are there. For me, the problem with Sam has always been his defense. You talked about it. Not super defensively sound. He can get hit. He can get hurt. He can get clipped. You know, MVP, he got kicked out of his stance and knocked out by Douglas Lima. Otherwise, man, he's been extremely durable throughout his career. Very hard to hurt, very hard to hit cleanly. You know, the guys that have come closest to finishing him mostly have done so through the grappling. And so maybe that is the path for Sam Patterson, but it's easier said than done, right? Like, you know, Kevin Holland, he's another guy that pushed the grappling briefly on MVP and almost popped out on his back and nearly had a rear naked choke, and then he couldn't get it. And you know, that MVP just went back to beating his ass again really bad. And it's kind of a minor miracle that MVP hasn't stopped anybody yet in the UFC, right? Like, he's hurt almost everybody that he's fought. Even Ian Gary kind of got turned into a wrestler by not loving some of the shots that he was eating cleanly from MVP on the feet. And so when I look at guys and I see their age, I like to look at their age, but I also like to see, you know, their recent form. With all due respect, that I thought the one concern with Brad coming into last week was just like, I was like, yeah, Eric's going to retire, and like Eric is no prize. But just Brad has kind of looked like shit lately too. So I was just like, maybe they're both just going to have a fucking, you know, shitty fight. And, you know, I look at this and it's like, if I had seen some major drop off from MVP over his recent fights, I would be like, yeah, like it's probably just going to be a tough sled for him. You know, even like Uros Medic against Jeff Neal. I just felt like we had seen a diminished version of Jeff Neal for several years. And so it was hard for me to say like Uros Medic has no chance if like, hey, you know, Jeff Neal's just not the same guy. And in this fight, it's like, I feel like MVP is the same guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he still has some grappling deficiencies. Like, that's going to be where he's got to mind his P's and Q's, got to protect his chin, make sure he doesn't get hit. That's the assignment in every fight. But I feel like, what does he do really well? Hit, not get hit, and then hurt people. And Sam Patterson's been knocked out twice in the first round in his MMA career. And MVP could definitely knock him out, as far as I'm concerned. Like, just because he hasn't knocked out Kevin Holland, who's like brick chin, almost one of the hardest guys to put away in the UFC.
At least he used to be.
Yeah, well, I talk about with head strikes, right? Like, if you just look at Kevin Holland's chin, like some of the punches he's taken in the UFC are sickening. You know what I mean? Just like full power, wind up, like bing, just right through his head, and he just goes ding, and he's right back in your face. Like, you know, doesn't always react great, but doesn't get put away with those headshots. He can get tapped and stuff, but you look at a guy like this, and I think it's hard to put away MVP. And so, Patterson, I think most of his win equity here is a finish, right? Like, I think if this fight goes to the cards, there's a non-zero chance that Sam Patterson looks really, really bad. Just like misses a lot of shots, follows him around the cage, gets kicked off of his feet type of thing. Like, that's what MVP does to even good fighters sometimes, is just make them look really bad. Make them look a step behind in terms of their class on the feet. And Jared Cannonier, no punk, strong physical guy. I wouldn't class him as like, oh, his grappling's sensational, but like a guy who can physically horse people to the ground.
He out wrestled Ion Kutalaba back in the day at 205. So
there you go. And just had limited success trying to do that with MVP because he's hard to get a hold of. He's hard to get a beat on, and he's hurting you whenever you get close. So yeah, I just feel like this is a bad fight for Sam Patterson. Even though I think he's a tough guy and he's done well. If you look back at those fights, they have not been without their moments of scariness, right? Like Trey Waters was landing, Diddy bopping his head around, and then he just put the shot on Trey Waters that Trey couldn't take. But Sam plays in the fire,
Absolutely. Why are we not just betting this thing under, Liam? 2.5 is out already. Under 2.5 is -135. If Sam's winning this fight, do we think MVP is losing a 15-minute decision to this guy? I have a really hard time seeing that happen. Like Ian Gary, sure. And yes, he did it grappling. So maybe you could justify Sam having a path there. But if MVP is winning this fight, it's probably because those chin concerns come back. It's probably because that head movement issue is a problem and he pings one right off the side of Sam Patterson's dome. But if Sam comes out and says, no, this is my time, and really takes this moment, it's probably because he gets another round one finish. No, like why? I feel like this 2.5 is a good price.
Yes, I lean towards the under 2.5. I was hoping it was going to be plus money because MVP keeps going to decision in the UFC. But I think that the bookmakers are kind of hip to it as well. Sam Patterson is just a very undercoated fighter as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. And I think defensively as well, right? So like if he doesn't get it done offensively, defensively, he's probably going to force it under as well. So you guys, I might just bet violence. Yeah, kill or be killed. I love the kid. I might just bet violence because I think my soul is telling me that this is a Michael Venom Page spot. So I don't want to really go against my guy, especially Liam. I've had bad luck with this. When I've actually had something going with a fighter and then I've turned on them, they've made me pay. It's like, no, you were right. You should have just rode it out. So I've tried to not do that. The under would allow me to continue to root for Sam and not betray him so I don't upset the gambling gods. And if he wins via round one knockout or submission, then I still cash my ticket and the streak is alive with my boy. That may be the way that I go rather than playing the Venom Page money line on the opposite side. But then I'm real smart if MVP gets a knockout and I end up cashing the ticket and avoiding losing the money on Sam Patterson. I might pivot to the total here on this one, you guys. And I will say, Dixon noticing my dog Bo Lin has an opinion on this fight. Yeah, he was going nuts out there during that one. So if you believe in the underdog karma there, Bo definitely having an opinion. It's funny, William, last week, somebody asked me who Link was because I do the Link Memorial on, Dog of the Week. And not everybody's been watching long enough to know who my boy was. And it's funny, the way a lot of people that watch the show got introduced to him is because whenever I lost my mind and I was doing like my selfie videos when I would cash a ticket, he would howl. He was in the background and he would go nuts. That he was my biggest fan. He would root for me. He would howl his ass off with me. It's really funny because Bo is a little asshole. I did my first big hit this week. I hit that sub prop at 10-1. This little fucker was biting me. He didn't know what to do because I've never done that with him around. It's been that long since I hit something worthy of me jumping out of my seat and ripping my shirt off that he was like, what are you doing? He starts like nipping at my shorts to like get me to sit back down, and he got me right in the thigh. So my dog is biting me now. I got to watch it. I'm not allowed to celebrate anymore, but just funny the differences between them. Some of you guys will remember Link howling, and Bo is not going to howl with me. He's telling me to shut up and sit down. All right, guys, we got the last couple of fights here for you. Co-main event of the evening. Luke Riley takes on Michael Aswell Jr. And on this one, Liam, I know Luke Riley is this big undefeated prospect, but if memory serves correctly, you might be the Aswell whisperer or the Aswell truther here. If you don't mind, I would love to just pivot a little bit, kick this one off to you, and let you you preview this fight, because I'm very interested to hear what you say regarding this fight with Michael Aswell.
Sure thing, my man. Well, I could tell you that, I'm a big fan of Michael Aswell, no doubt about it. I've been, an advocate of his, a proponent of his, a guy who has engaged with him a little bit on social media. I just think he's a cool guy. I like his style. But I've always tried to keep it, professional in terms of my criticism as well. When he came onto Contender Series, when he was going to fight Bogdan Grad, I talked about, I love his boxing. I love how tough he is. I love he's durable. He stays in it for 15 minutes. He's got good cardio. He does a lot of things really well. But the problem that he has is that he's a little bit basic. What do I mean by that? He's going to box. Going in, what is he going to do? He's going to box with you. He's going to come forward. He's going to box with you. He's going to throw a lot of volume. He's going to be on your ass. He's going to do it all night, 15 minutes, stay in your face. Is he a bad wrestler? No. Is he a bad grappler? No. But does he really push those elements? Is that something he goes out there with an intent to go get after it? Not really. And then you look at, okay, well, is he going to mix in a lot of kicks? Is he a guy that's going to bring in some knees? Is he throwing elbows over the top? It's not to say that he'll never do these techniques. It's just to say that not really. That's not really the bulk of his game. The bulk of his game is getting behind, boxing combinations, forward pressure, being aggressive, punching. Boxing and punching, boxing and punching, and punching and boxing. That's what Michael Aswell likes to do. And he's a young guy. Do you expect that over time, as he spends time in the professional craft, as he gets more experience, that maybe he picks up on, hey, you know what? I want some more reactive takedowns in my game. And I want to have a little bit of a switch up here where I can get the back, or I can do this. Maybe I can work a front headlock game. I think absolutely. It's just something that he doesn't really have right now. And so, unless he's going to go display those skills for the first time, I think that Luke Riley is probably going to get the fight that he wants in this fight, which is a fight on the feet. Luke Riley is another guy that, is he a horrible wrestler and grappler? No. But is he a guy that can be taken down, spend some time controlled on the mat, and be a little bit frustrated down there? Absolutely. I think that's the case. If I thought Michael Aswell was going to come out here and consistently shoot takedowns, that would be a different story. It's just not really his game. And so what I look at here is two tough guys, two guys that are pretty hard to put away. So a fight that's probably going to see some minutes. A lot of the minutes are probably going to be on the feet. I think Michael Aswell is probably going to get ahead on the strike count. I think Luke Riley is probably going to land some pretty big counters that look aesthetic, that look pleasing. And I think that the crowd is going to be behind him. I think that the judges are going to be ready to screw Michael Aswell if it's close. So I feel like Michael Aswell is fighting, four guys, right? Which is his opponent and the three judges cage side. And his opponent's got to fight one guy and hopefully not get finished and give himself a good chance. And then on top of that, Luke Riley, in his last fight, I faded him, right? I'll just keep it a buck with you guys, right? I bet plus 225 on Bogdan Grad. And Bogdan Grad, Clint, I'm 99% sure was minus 300 going into round two. And then he instantly dies. It's one of those MMA bets where if you've been in this long enough, I was trying to get in on Charles Johnson plus 2,000 at close on FanDuel. He was plus 2,000, minus 6,000 on Bruno Silva. Because
FanDuel's ass for live betting.
I was I just can't see how they're going to fuck me on this. But I was you know what? Let's give $25 to make sure. And then I couldn't. They spun me out, and I got fucked. So that's the nature of this game, right? If you have an opportunity, you try and hedge. Because Bogdan Grad was doing great, he was fighting the game plan I wanted from him. Take him down, make him uncomfortable, keep him on the ground as much as he can. I thought he won the first round. And then Luke Riley just comes out and absolutely starches him in round two, knocks him cold, knocks him dead. And again, it's one of those bets where, hindsight, I think Bogdan Grad's probably always going to look okay for as long as he lasts and then eventually die. I just don't think that he had the same durability and staying power that he needed. I think Aswell will have that durability and staying power. The problem is he just might get jobbed on the cards here. And even if he doesn't, Michael Aswell fought to a very competitive decision with Bogdan Grad. And I thought, unlike the community, that it could have went either way, honestly, when I watched it live. And, it wasn't because I don't like Michael Aswell. I really like Michael Aswell, right? Like you said, And when Michael Aswell was having his next fight in the UFC, I was pretty sure he was going to beat Lucas Almeida healthy, long, short, or indifferent, right? But then when I found out Lucas Almeida had an injury, I was like, let's load it up as many ways as we can do it, inside the distance here, KO, whatever. So that was the kind of thing where it's just like, when you see opportunities like that in the market, you just take advantage as much as you can. And this is not that kind of opportunity, right? Like now, instead of going to fight some guy who's injured and not that good anyway, and it's like now you got to fight another young, hungry prospect and a good fighter and a guy that his style kind of matches up well with your style, and the promotion's not going to do you any favors, and the crowd's not going to do you any favors, and judges aren't going to do you any favors. So just feels to me like if I was to pick a money line side, I mean, I think Bogdangrad and Michael Aswell are similar fighters. I would rate, Bogdangrad as being the more well-rounded guy. I would, in terms of like how he's going to approach it. He's more willing to take you down. He's more willing to attempt the sub. But I think that Michael Aswell has just got more staying power. If it was on a neutral ground, I would make Michael Aswell probably plus 150 or lower here. But it's not on a neutral ground, and I've seen it a million times in England, man. So, feels like a dogger pass, but I'll be passing in all likelihood.
Okay, that makes sense.
I do think Riley's not a bad fighter. Like, I don't want that to be misconstrued. I just think Aswell is another pretty solid guy. I don't think he's going to get a fair shake, even if he fights well.
I think that makes sense. And we have seen some suspect judging in the Paramount era. Now, to be fair, it's MMA judging. It's always suspect judging, but it's been pretty rough where the guys who are supposed to win do win recently. So be careful out there with that. And these guys that are in their own backyard definitely are going to get the pop from the crowd, and that could sway the judges for sure. Just some X's and O's for some of you guys. Luke Riley is undefeated, 12-0, 26 years old. He is coming from Cage Warriors. And I will say, lots of footwork, stays on the outside, really gets you kind of chasing him, and then unloads his hands. He is very fast, very clean, and he has a good balance. Good job avoiding takedowns for the most part. What Liam said with Bogdangrad, it was really impressive. This guy lost 7 minutes of his UFC debut. He was on the back foot, slammed against the cage, put on his back, getting roughed up. Seriously, right up until the moment that he decided to switch on. And Bogdangrad slowed down just a hair, and this kid put him to sleep.
The strategy is going to plan for the next generation's Luke Riley. They did drop that round, however. Bogdangrad, I would imagine, just press repeat. Whoa! Wow!
Could you imagine being a plus 225 Bogdangrad better there when they're like, Bogdangrad, he's doing great, but it just instantly dies? I'm like, how could you do this to me?
And just the perfect shot. I mean, that's Rocky level shit. Where like he hits him and it's sweat, blood flying everywhere, slow-mo, caught his head going the wrong direction. Like just a filthy knockout. This kid's got hands. And Michael Aswell, 1-1 in the UFC, 25 years old. Lost to Oki on short notice, but looked pretty good in that fight. And his bounce back win over Lucas Almeida. Now, remind me, Liam, I believe this is the one with the infamous blown up hand situation. Was it not? Was that when Lucas Almeida on the scale had his right hand and it was swollen to about here? Everyone caught it at the weigh-ins that it was severely broken. And for whatever reason, the doctor's cage side were like, no, he's fine. Put him on in. He's good. The man, his best weapon was completely off the table, and they put him in there anyway. So, he died in that fight. It was very unfortunate. But if you caught that at the weigh-ins, you cashed a nice little ticket on as well in his bounce-back fight. I am with you, Liam. I do think this is a Luke Riley spot. I do think you're correct. The judges are going to be an uphill battle, even if he doesn't do the best in the fight. But I wouldn't be shocked with that kind of boxing and that kind of power. I know Aswell's tough, but it wouldn't shock me if he was able to get him out of there. So for me, it's favor to pass. I like Riley here, and worst case scenario, I'll bank on the judges to bail me out. It is main event time, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about Movsar Evloev and Lerone, the Miracle Murphy. This is an excellent fight. This is a true number one contenders level fight. Some weird stuff going on in the division. You know, you've got Gene Silva, who posted something about always be ready. So there was some inclination that maybe Movsar was having like travel visa issues or something, or maybe they're putting together a fight with Volkanovski before this fight kicks off for some reason. Weird stuff happening. My boy Gene Silva's in a position he thinks is good right now for one reason or another. But we'll see if this fight happens, right? Movsar is very, very well known for finding a way not to make it to the cage, kind of fighting like once a year at this point. He's coming off of you know what? I'm gonna start with him first. I'll get to that in a second here. Movsar is 19-0, 32 years old, trains out of ATT, and just the most ridiculous grappler you guys have ever seen. Unreal cardio, unreal pace. He will melt any toilet seat that he pees on because he is juiced to the gills with everything you could fit into a human body. He actually moved up a weight class because the weight cuts were getting too tough for him. He was so freaking swollen up. I don't know how you could get more muscle on a human frame. I don't think it's possible. So he's kind of a little undersized in this weight class when he faces off with people and stuff like that, but he makes up for it with just sheer muscle mass. It's tough because I firmly believed in this guy and being a title challenger, but then he hasn't been able to stay active. He hasn't been able to make it to the cage. And the UFC is trying to bury him because he's boring as shit. He's very good boxing, but he's got pillow fists. He can't hurt a fly on the feet. So he relies on that pace and that grappling and just out hustles people. So in 25-minute fights, he's going to be putting people to sleep. And I mean fans, not his opponents. What's happened with him recently, though? He's been out for like 2 straight years. Apparently, he caught some bug that completely zapped like his cardio system. Like he couldn't breathe. And he's had a hard road getting back to fighting shape because of it. Now, he's probably okay. The doctor signed off. The coaches signed off. He's back in fighting shape, ready for a main event spot. But after a 2-year-long layoff, when your whole game plan is outlasting your opponent and out hustling your opponent and grinding and grappling nonstop, I don't think I want to bet on a guy at Big Chalk who is coming off of an illness that ruins his cardio in that circumstance, Liam. That's my biggest issue with this fight, and the biggest red flag for me is that this guy might be compromised at this point in his career. We have to wait until tomorrow or Saturday to find out. Lerone Murphy, 7-0-1, 34 years old. He's coming off that Aaron Pico knockout, really eerily similar to the Luke Riley situation, where he basically was on the defense the entire time until he landed one of the most insane knockouts we've ever seen.
Murphy keeping that guard high, staying composed in the face of pressure. So much pressure.
Just ridiculous timing with this spinning elbow. Lerone Murphy, not really a power guy, right? Not a guy that's just icing fools on the feet that way. But he landed the perfect shot at the perfect time and it worked out for him. But he was kind of getting bullied up in the cage until that point, Liam. He was kind of getting hustled on by Aaron Pico. He stayed calm. He covered up. And he took his moment when he had it. He's got only 51% takedown defense, which is another thing that is a little bit concerning to me. But he's well-rounded. He's undefeated. He keeps on finding ways to win. It's really been impressive because Lerone Murphy is a guy that I kind of didn't think was going to make it to the top level. And now here he is, and he's just looking like a freaking stud at 34 years of age. Next in line for the title, especially if he wins this fight, my tinfoil hat read on this, Liam, is frankly, these are the two guys that aren't super marketable, and the UFC doesn't want to deal with either of them. So they're fighting each other to eliminate one of them from the title picture, right? You've got two guys that are a little bit boring that tend to go the distance, and the UFC says, all right, one of you get out of here. I don't care which one. Just one of you lose this fight. And I think that's why they're making these two guys fight each other here in the main event. Lerone Murphy's chin has always been something that's been a bit of an issue. He got dropped by Ige. He got dropped in his debut by Tuhugov. He's been rocked in multiple fights. But he's always been able to dig deep and manage to fight his way back in after that. So not something we can really knock him for. He's obviously never even lost, much less been knocked out. And Evloev is not the guy who's going to hit him on the button and knock him out. He doesn't have that kind of power. It's a weird line because you've got Evloev at -230, Lerone Murphy at +190, And there's just real conflicting issues here for me, Liam, because if this was 2 years ago when Evloev was on an absolute tear and before Lauren Murphy did what he did, Lerone Murphy, sorry, in his last 2-3 fights, I probably would be shoving my chips in the middle on Evloev just because I think he has the higher ceiling. That grappling is a cheat code. We know that's an issue for Murphy, but you're coming off a long layoff. Ring rust is a thing. You're coming off an illness that zapped your cardio. That's what you rely on to win your fights. And Murphy's never looked better. And Murphy's fought through every bit of opposition that's been put in front of him. Lerone Murphy has been battle tested. He's been put in bad positions, and he's found ways to win fights against some of the best fighters in the world for the last 2 years. So you've got one guy streaking and one guy who has massive question marks. I don't think I'm going to bet this fight. I kind of am leaning towards Lerone Murphy, Liam. I'm not going to lie. I feel like it's a little bit of a dog or pass. It seems super square, right? It seems like the squarest click of all time ever. The guy we've seen winning, the bookies are now making the underdog to the mountain man grappler, right? That's coming out from a 2-year layoff. These are the types of spots where I feel like the public all clicks the plus money and they just get fleeced by the bookies who dangle that plus money in front of them here. But given the circumstances, I kind of feel like I want to be on that side rather than laying the chalk with the guy who might not be able to breathe into the third round. You know what I mean? So right now for me, it's dog or pass. I don't know. I'm going to have to sit with this one for a little while longer because I really am not sure. But I could see Murphy finding his way to another win somehow, some way if Evloev is not 100% air.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting Lerone Murphy has closed an underdog just twice in his UFC career. He's 1-0-1 in those fights. His UFC debut, he was plus 270 against Zubaira Tuhugov. He ended up giving up 9 minutes of control in that fight, yet he still was able to manage a draw there. One judge scored the fight for him. One judge scored the fight for Zubaira. One judge scored the fight a draw. So it goes down as a draw, right? But, that was 7 years ago. And if you look at the intervening years since then, Lerone Murphy hasn't been controlled for more than 4.5 or so minutes in any fight since. So he got controlled for 9 minutes. He's half that. Nobody's ever controlled him for more than 1 round of fighting since then, right? And when you look at Lerone Murphy, I actually think people are pretty low on him. If you just look like across like how people talk about him, view him, this kind of thing, right? Like they talk about, man, he shouldn't have beaten Gabriel Santos, and he's had these close decisions. And I think that, first of all, you just don't get to 9-0-1 in the UFC by accident, right? Like that's
no, sir.
That's a vote of confidence, right? And then you look, he had to dig it out against Stan Ige, no doubt. Like he got hurt bad in that fight, but what do you see about him? He's a dog. He will dig. He will fight. He is not going to go away easy. Like you got to kill the man, right? And we know that like somebody tried to kill him, right? Shot him several times. Like he's still here, right? Whooping ass, handing out ass whoopings, right? Like Lerone Murphy's got some staying power, right? We could just put it that way. Aaron Pico, man, that's one of the hardest losses for the wrestling community to take. I've had an Aaron Pico t-shirt since I was in high school, straight up. Aaron Pico is the man. Great wrestler, good fighter too. Thing is, UFC did him no favors. If you look at these guys that come over from Bellator with some hype, look at who they give them. A guy from the UFC that has very little name, but all the promise, all the power, all the this. Mario Bautista, right? 50,000 Instagram followers, but he's got double-digit wins in the promotion, and nobody wants to fight him, and he's got the cardio to go all day, and he's well-rounded. What is Lerone Murphy? It's the same thing. He fucking doesn't lose, and he can go all day, and he's hard to kill. It's a hard fight for Aaron Pico. Aaron Pico's fighting the fight of his life. He would have had to fight that fight perfectly for the full 15 minutes. He would have had to fight that fight perfectly until he finished Lerone Murphy, because otherwise, Lerone Murphy stays dangerous. He stays composed. He stays in it. And he's one exchange away at all times from winning the fight, right? What's the difference between him and Movsar Evloev? One guy has finished fights in the UFC, right? Like 3 finishes. And by the way, not finishes where it's like, hey, the ref subjectively like intervened, could have went either way. Like he knocked Makwan Amirkhani out so bad that like it was bad. Like his family was probably like escorted out in tears. Like it was vicious, dude. And so when you just look at You've never seen Movsar Evloev do that to somebody in the UFC, period. You've never seen him have a decisive win like that. And for me, you know, when you go and you got to fight somebody in hostile territory, your margins are a little bit thinner. And then you look at how he fights anyway. Did he blow out Arnold Allen? I thought it was a really competitive fight. Like, I think you can make an argument that Arnold Allen won that fight against Movsar, straight up. Again, was it close? Yes. Did he nearly knee his head off and then Movsar got the break because of the hands on the ground and the, you know, these effing rules that we have in this sport that come and go and that make things shitty? Like, Arnold Allen was smashing him in the face. That's what I remember, you know, and the guy looked really uncomfortable and he was not liking it, right? Who came closer to finishing that fight? And Arnold got hurt and then he got back on him and he's landing the knees. So I just think you look at Movsar, a lot of his fights, there's competitive moments. There's competitive exchanges. There's back and forth. And that for me is like the thing that they have in common. So both these guys have back and forth moments. Like, who do I think is the better wrestler and grappler? No doubt about it. I think it's Movsar. But on the feet, I think Lerone Murphy is the better fighter. I think Lerone Murphy could job this guy out on the cards if he's able to do, you know, a minute and a half of striking and then he gets controlled on the ground and not much happens in terms of damage. I really think that is a kind of fight that he could win in this kind of environment. You know, if he's half into the cage, throwing elbows, the crowd's go, oh. Whereas if this guy takes him down full, flat backs him to the mount, they're, boo, you suck. I can't believe this. Stand him up. And I just feel like that's the kind of dynamic where Lerone Murphy doesn't quit on himself. He's got good cardio, hard to kill. And Movsar Evloev doesn't really kill people. So it's going to give a lot of opportunity in all likelihood for the more dangerous guy in terms of what we've seen proven in the cage. Lerone Murphy's a more proven guy who's dangerous to go out there and finish you. And then on the you know, turntable, if we go the full 25 minutes and it's been, you know, 12 and a half minutes, let's say 13 minutes, 15 minutes, if you want to be optimistic of control time for Movsar, like what happened in the intervening minutes on the feet? Because if we saw Lerone Murphy land one knockdown and, you know, 10 more strikes, I could still see him winning that fight if it's close. Even if it's a split. Even if it's, you know, 48-47. Even if they got a Cody Garbrandt it and kick him 3 times in the nuts and start pulling points away.
Please.
Like, in ways that are unbelievable to watch.
Anything but that.
Hey, if it gets across the finish line, I'm sure Lerone Murphy backers, you know, by hook or by crook, right? Cody Garbrandt backers, I never saw one of them give the ticket back, right? They didn't apologize, give the money back to Long Zhao. So
you take what they give you.
That's the name of the game, man. And for this one, man, dogger pass for me.
Okay. Well, I agree with you, Liam. I also think dogger pass. We talked about the hometown crowd here. That's definitely going to play. Lerone is in his backyard for this one. And considering Movsar may be both a little undersized coming off the long layoff and potentially not the guy he was 2 years ago the last time we saw him, those are all the question marks where I would tend to bet against him rather than bet on him. If he had a clean bill of health and was active, and this was 2 years ago, maybe a different story for me. But right now, one of these guys knows how to win, is active, is beating the best fighters in the world today. And I do think that makes a difference. That is UFC London, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us here on the podcast. Liam, my friend, thank you for the long breakdown. This was a little bit bigger of a card than I envisioned. So as we kind of dug into it, this one went a little bit long. So I apologize and thank you for sticking with me, my friend. If you would like to shout out, let the people know where they can support you, where they can find more of your content, any shows, any sponsors, anything like that. The floor is yours, my friend.
I appreciate that always, Clint. And I'll just say, it's an honor. It's a blessing. It's a privilege. I appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight. It's always fun when we go back and forth, my man, talking about these fights. I'm excited for the card, more excited now having talked about the card with you. So Lord willing, we can put it together and have a good event as well. You know, like I said, I'm just a guy and I've had good results, but I've also been the guy who's looking at it like, man, do I know anything about this sport? I've had those moments too. And, you know, I truly believe at my best, I'm one of the best. So it's right back to work always, man. And seeking better days. God bless you all. Good luck this week. Hopefully we can all find pay dirt together.
Right there with you, my friend. Let's get it.
Sir, whereabouts is the closest bank?
It's right around the corner.
All right, cheers. Thank you.
Hey!
We're robbing them this week, baby. Let's go. Love you guys. Thank you for the support. Kick some ass at UFC London. Let's get out of here. We'll see you later this week for the Total Takedown, the Clint's Hot Props, and of course, the undefeated post weigh-in show. Get subscribed. Tune in. Let's do this thing. Love you guys. Let's roll.